In the beginning, the elder serpent created a world called Outrement. She looked into the darkness and uttered a phrase, summoning sparkles. And when it was time to return to the stars, she entrusted the world to her children. Flying up, the dragon turned to people and asked them to see the ideal covered with scales, talking about the fact that they, the dragons, created the world and it exists for their pleasure and no matter what their rivals, the fairy lords of Falmer, say. For centuries, he, Vainker the Night-Slayer, stood at the top of the world and hunted princesses, absorbed countless knights and collected the world's greatest treasury. When it was time to go into hibernation and he returned to his secret lair in the Albane Mountains, leaving his goblin minions on guard, he decided to take a short nap. Just for a few years. But the dragon had no idea how much Outermund would change during his sleep. When the dragon woke up, he thought that nothing could compare to resting on the fruits of his victories after a good feast. Because he had not slept so well for several centuries, then a friend saw that a man was running right next to him, paying attention to him, because the coin that the man was holding slid across the floor and fell right next to him. Seeing the man, the dragon was very surprised that the man would get into his treasury. When the dragon realized that it was a man and that there was a thief right in front of him and spewing his flames, he tried to get a young man who was running away from him, and the next moment hit the guy with his tail. The dragon said that he was ready to swear that one had only to look at 50 years and everyone forgets about the food chain. Holding a person under his paw, he said, I turned to the dragon, telling him to tell him, calling the person food, what his name was and asking if he could talk. The young man, who was terribly scared when he saw the huge dragon, said that he could talk, and then seeing that the dragon was also talking was very surprised about it. The dragon said that sometimes he talked to his breakfast and told the young man to answer him. The young man said that his name was Victor, referring to the dragon as Sir. Vainker is a night-killer, called the first great calamity of this era and the king of the Altai Mountains. But Victor could simply call him His Majesty. Towering over the man, said the dragon. Victor only repeated after the dragon, and the dragon said that he heard some disrespect in the young man's voice and said that he could feel the difference, so it was necessary to repeat it again. The next moment our hero repeated and once again addressing the dragon as His Majesty, saying that it was an error. Looking at the man, the dragon told him that he certainly did not think so and asked him to say why and what made the young man think that breaking into his lair and stealing from him was a good idea, because he really was very interested in it. Then the guy said that someone hired him to return this rapier that was lying nearby. The young man said, pointing at it with his finger and saying that it was considered missing. Seeing this, the dragon said that the guy was a liar. He had to fight his way through an army of goblin minions to get here. Fearing that the dragon was evil again, the guy said that goblins had not been seen in the mountains for decades, addressing His Majesty. Looking around his cave, the dragon saw that there really were no goblins anywhere and shouted that all the goblins were cowards, because they ran away as soon as he decided to take a nap. Picking up a man, he asked him if Victor had servants. Hearing about servants, the young man began to imagine. Victor told the dragon that he used to be part of a group of adventurers, but they didn't work together and only he had professional inclinations that went beyond petty theft. The dragon nodded to our hero and said that it was difficult to find a good assistant everywhere, but he advised the young man not to hire. He would not make this mistake. The next moment the dragon opened it and wanted to eat our hero. The young man asked the dragon to wait a couple of minutes, because they would send someone else if he killed him. Then the young man tried to wave his hands to attract the attention of the hungry dragon and said that no one knows that His Majesty lives in these mountains. The dragon, looking at the young man, said that they would find out as soon as he turned people into ashes and their settlements. But also the dragon was wondering who sent him, saying that he would eat after he finished with the young man. Holding himself in the air and waving his arms, the young man said that he did not know it was an anonymous update with the local building, saying that the reward for this rapier was 1,000 zloty. The dragon said that it was a good amount for such a dirty business, and our hero agreed with the dragon, saying that he basically agreed for the sake of education, because he understood that he could earn a few more levels, maybe even a special perk for climbing a mountain. The dragon, listening to the young man, thought that perhaps he was talking about some kind of food. Then Victor explained that levels are powers that can be obtained, for example, for the class of a knight, wizard, or bandit. He also explained that they grant him additional abilities called perks. Levels can be obtained for work, new experience, or killing. The dragon told the young man that no one could even imagine how many thieves he had killed. I turned to the little man Victor and said that he had never received these levels. Perhaps the dragon simply did not know it. Something was heard above the dragon's head, and then looking up he saw some kind of letter congratulating him. The letter said that thanks to his unimaginable ego and the noble blood of the dragon, he received a class level and nobleman. Also got a class perk and old money. Old money doubles the chances of treasure dropping from monsters. Turning to the human Victor, the dragon asked him if the guy identified himself as a monster, to which waving his hands our hero said that of course not, and sighing, a friend, he said that it was annoying. The next moment, addressing the man Victor, our hero would like to hear what the dragon has to say. The dragon was telling the guy to put the rapier down from where he took it. He also reported that the young man would take him straight to this guild. He wanted to look at this ad himself. The dragon said that since he now has a shortage of goblins, the young man will be his new servant until he pays back the debts for his life. Upon hearing this, our hero said that he was absolutely not suitable for this role, and turning to the dragon, he looked menacingly at the young man, so our hero realized that he had nothing else to do. The dragon, looking at the guy, said that he was a dragon, and the young man was his servant. Looking at the dragon, our hero said that it was a great honor for him, addressing the dragon as his majesty, so he said that everything was fine, and then serving him promises the young man a great reward. He said, or rather life. Any other dragon would have eaten him for his crime and would never have taken the little man as a servant. The dragon informed Victor that he was generous and merciful. Then our hero said that his majesty was a very generous dragon. Of course he knew about it, and said that now the young man had to tell him more about these perks. Leaving the cave looking at the forest, he said, the main character's name is Victor Dalton. He was locked in this fantasy world for 2 years when he left the village of Valbin for the mountains. Soon he said that he would return with a victory or not at all, but everything did not go as planned. Our hero flew over the city together with the dragon, addressing his majesty. He said that he should have gone alone. The city guards had already sounded the alarm in connection with his appearance, so he asked him to go down, because he swore that he would not run too far. The dragon, addressing the young man, told the servant that the king should stop personally in front of his people so that everyone would remember who they obey, to which our hero simply thought that at this rate the contents of his stomach would also appear to his subjects. At that moment, the guards who stood at the city gate were telling everyone to strike this dragon and put everything into this shot. The next moment, the commanding leader was talking about everyone firing arrows, but the dragon had nothing to do with it, and he flew on, and asking his servant where this guild was, thinking that the arrows were too ticklish for him. Our city reported that the dragon needed this building with a bell in front of it, and addressing his majesty. The next moment, the dragon crashed into the wall right in front of him, and then seeing it, people fled from the village. The next moment, appearing in front of the guild, the dragon asked if this was the building they needed together with Victor. Victor said that it was here that the dragon had to go. In the guild, all the adventurers were talking to each other, and the girl was checking the documents. The next moment, suddenly they all saw the dragon and Victor, who was right with him, asking if the young man had dragged the dragon right with him. The dragon, addressing people, asked which of them was the least useless. One of the guys was telling the adventurers, were they all scared of flying lizards, saying that he was not afraid and he would prove it. The next moment the dragon attacked the young man, saying that he did not understand how their species had not yet died out. Our hero, watching this situation, thought that perhaps it was not worth expecting too much from this dragon. Looking at people, the dragon thought that it was a great strategy. Then people were scared of the dragon, ran away. And Victor, looking at them, thought that they were leaving him to die, and he thought that they were friends. The next moment, bringing Victor to the girl who was in charge and gave the task, he told the servant to act. Seeing Victor, the girl staggered with horror. Turning to Charlene, he asked if she was free on Friday evening. But the girl said that there was a dragon in her guild, and our hero introduced her to King Vainker, a knighthood, saying that the king who was in front of him was alive. When Charlene saw the dragon, she said that it was the Red Terror of Midgard, and did the young man drag the ancient red dragon to their village, to which the young man replied that technically it was his dragon who dragged it. The dragon at that moment was standing behind our hero, addressing the servant and asking what kind of female human being it was, why they needed her. Then the young man explained to the dragon that the girl was the head of the staff of this guild, addressing the dragon as His Majesty. Also addressing Charlene, the young man asked her to tell the giant evil player what she was doing until this dragon ate them, and then trying to keep her composure. The girl said that she was engaged in document management on behalf of the Guild of Adventurers of the Midshipmen. She accepted a request from clients and distributed them among the adventurers. After hearing this, dragon told the servant Victor to ask a human woman to read the request that brought him into his possession, addressing His Majesty. Our hero asked if this one does not talk to other people, and the dragon said that it was not so. Talking to animals is the task of the servant. Angry, the girl tore a sheet from the board and said that she would show this animal. Then hearing this, the dragon asked the servant what the food said. Then the girl read about Louise Marquise de Carabas, who offered a reward of 1,000 gold coins for the return of the lost name of Rapier, the last time she was seen by goblins in the Albane Mountains. Hearing this, the dragon said that it looked like the young man was telling the truth, telling the servant Victor that he would spare him and also spare the little man Charlene if he told him where to find this Marquise, and said that he would eat her. At this moment, the young man thought that it might end badly. Charlene said that she would do anything to get the dragon to leave and, addressing them, told him to give her his card. Victor gave the girl the card, and the dragon then asked the attendant to add to him how it works. The young man began to talk about how nobles, merchants, or groups of peasants send requests to the Adventurers Guild along with the rewards offered. After the end of the 100 Years' War, most of them were associated with monsters or bandits. Decades ago, very generous rewards were awarded for the murder of His Majesty, at least until the dragon was declared dead, the young man said. At this moment, the dragon said that he thought all the time that their kind had collective suicidal tendencies, and without finishing he heard that he was declared dead, so staring at Charlene demanded an explanation. The girl explained that a group of adventurers brought the skull of a red dragon 20 years ago, that it belonged to His Majesty, and since the red dragons did not appear later, everyone thought that of course it was him. Roaring, the dragon said that it was unforgivable. The minions had to notify their primitive kind that he was a Weiner Knightslayer was not dead. Trying to calm him down, our hero said that this news spreads quickly after this demonstration of strength, addressing His Majesty, and Charlene managed to save her head thinking something could fall on her, because the dragon was huge but stood in a small building. The dragon said that it would be better if it was, asking what requests he could receive in the guild. Victor told Charlene if she could count several tasks to the dragon. The girl said that the trolls had plundered the lands of the Count of Provence, and were currently hiding in the forests of Gévaudan. The Count offers a generous reward for the destruction of these pests. The dragon asked can get levels for this case. Hearing this, Charlene was very surprised that the dragon knew about the levels, and the young man said that His Majesty had received a noble class level. Then the girl did not understand how the dragon could level up. In the name of the 12 gods, dragons can gain class levels. Addressing the girl, the dragon said that his servant had recently informed him about the existence of this system, asking how much people were paid for it. Charlene, looking at our hero, was very unhappy that he informed the dragon about it, but she had to answer that it was 6,000 gold coins. When the dragon heard this, he asked for 6,000 gold coins to eat the troll. Then the girl said that this was considered a difficult task, addressing His Majesty, because these are trolls from the presidential war. Hearing this, the dragon rubbed his face with his claws and asked if people were really afraid of a troll, because they were an ordinary snack, and said that all mammals were so weak. The young man said that since this was so, it was just that His Majesty should think about an adventurer's career, and show everyone how it was done. He said. The next moment, the dragon said that 6,000 gold for him to usually do for free. This is the highest paid request. Did he ask what our hero, looking at the dragon, did not understand if he really thought about it. Then suddenly they said that they give 64,000 gold for killing the Masala Kraken. I heard about the money. The dragon was talking about the fact that Victor's servants were ready, because the dragon was going to burn this village to the ground for his crime against the royal person. But it is obvious that such wealth dormant without a suitable dragon is an even greater crime. He was a dragon Weiner who would gladly solve the problems of their lowly kind in exchange for their coins, the dragon said. Then Charlene, addressing Her Majesty, said that she was not sure that the dragon could become an adventurer, and the dragon said that it was natural, he was too good for this job. I hope I say that it was not so. Then the dragon interrupted, and they say that he was a dragon. Now he was an adventurer. The girl started talking like his food, then frightened, she said that she would register the two of them as a group of adventurers. It is necessary that they both fill out these papers and sign them. Upon hearing this, the dragon again turned to the servant Victor and asked him. The dragon said that he officially promoted him to the head of the servants, named him with his living signature. From now on he would deal with these pieces of paper as a proxy. This is a big responsibility, but he believed that our hero would cope. The young man received a monster squire class level. Now he can talk and understand the speech of any monster and also gets 20 plus charisma when interacting with them. After hearing about the new class, the young man thought that it wasn't so bad and asked the girl if it was serious or it was a prank. It was impossible to come up with anything more interesting, but she just pointed at the door and our hero realized that it meant no date was planned on Friday. Then the dragon asked what was the matter, addressing the servant Victor, but he said that nothing, addressing his majesty. Then Charlene said that she said that the young man had to go to hell, but it seems he was already there. So Vainker became the first dragon adventurer. What could have gone wrong? Looking at the adventurer's lead badge, the dragon thought that it was humiliating, flying and holding our hero in his hands. Then the young man explained that all adventurers start with a lead badge, addressing his majesty, saying that he also has a lead badge. Hearing what the young man was saying to him, the dragon said that he was a man, and the dragon was a dragon. And then the young man said that the dragon was a unique case, turning to Victor to ask his relatives for making such a mistake. At that moment, they flew up to the camp and when they saw it, the dragon asked if it was a forest of trolls. Then the young man replied that it was so and addressing his majesty, saying that trolls usually build camps and said that they could look. But then the dragon interrupted him, telling the servant that he would not stain his noble scales with trolls and in order to deal with them, talking about the young man about that he was a dragon and whether our hero remembered about it. The next moment, taking more air into his chest, he began to spew flames and then Victor asked the dragon to wait and does not kill anyone. At that moment, a girl was sitting nearby near the ground and collecting plants, but suddenly she felt a fire, and going out to a place where she could see better, looking at the fire, she thought about how beautiful it was. At that moment our dragon was trying to burn everything he saw around him, and Victor asked him what he was doing. This was totally not eco-friendly. The dragon flew over the former colony of trolls, the whole forest was burning, and then he told our hero that the guy should look, because the problem with trolls was solved. Our hero answered him that the dragon had set fire to the forest and he replied that it was just like that. At that moment everyone was trying to run far away and save their lives because the whole forest burned down, and with them the trolls. Looking at this, Victor thought that it was painful to look at because they didn't have a chance. The dragon explained to the acolyte that this is what dragons do and it's even better to turn their prayers to him. Sometimes he even answered them. The dragon explained to the young man and asked why he was complaining, because he would be paid for what he could do for free. The young man, addressing his majesty, said that flying in his hand was terrible, especially when he breathed fire into his neck. The dragon explained to the young man that it must have been all because of the lack of scales and he sympathizes with the situation of our hero. But what could he do with his birth defect? Turning to the dragon, the young man asked very carefully if he could fly on the dragon's back. His eyes were shining at that moment and he addressed him not even with a request for a plea. Seeing how our hero asks him, as he told the acolyte about what kind of thankless demand it was. The dragon explained that when he found the young man this morning, he was just a pathetic thief drifting without goals in life. Now he was his head of staff. Heard our hero thinking that his majesty and his faith warms his icy heart. Our hero thought, realizing that he would not ride on the dragon's back, and then the dragon said that he liked the young man's answer and that he no longer demanded so much. At this moment, the girl who was collecting flowers earlier hid behind a giant stone and peeking at our heroes thought about how beautiful this dragon was, and the man who was sitting next to her prayed to God and asked him to be able to help him. Our heroes did not pay any attention to them, because they did not even suspect their presence, and went about their business. Standing near the dragon, Victor said that at least he got the monster squire level for it. After hearing this and looking at the sign in front of him, the dragon asked our hero who the squire was and whether it was some kind of servant. He was interested. At that moment, the system reported that the young man had received the monster squire class level, and our hero explained that he was paid accordingly for this level, and the dragon received the noble class level, so the dragon asked why he didn't get a perk this time. The young man explained to his majesty that the perk can only be obtained for every 2 level. After hearing about only for every 2 level, the dragon asked who decided so. At that moment a guy and a girl who were sitting behind a stone and watching our heroes and began to run away. Victor continued to tell. At that moment the dragon asked who decided all this. The guy told him that the gods probably decided how this situation would be solved. But after hearing this, the dragon thought that they were worthless upstarts. They always declare that they created the world. Although everyone knows that the dragons did it first, Vainker spoke to our hero. The dragon, addressing the young man, sat down in a pose and asked him to tell where he could find them and reprimand them, talking about those who came up with the rules. Our hero explained that he certainly did not know how to reprimand his majesty, saying that he was not religious and could they ask the bishop about it. When the dragon heard about the bishop, he said that they had to find him, but only after the young man provided him with what belonged to him. Hearing this, our hero was beside himself again, asking about what he had to do. The dragon explained that according to the perk, old money, trolls should have lost treasures after death. Therefore, pointing to the raging flames, the dragon asked if the young man thought that he would go there and get dirty with ashes. Then our hero explained to the dragon that he had no immunity to fire. The dragon was not pleased at all, and he said that if he had sworn by the elder beast, the mammals were not good for anything at all. The next moment he said that they would postpone rebirth until the flame was extinguished. In the meantime, he was going to receive compensation for the crimes of his previous employer. Then our hero said that he certainly agreed with the dragon and asked him to look at the map. A little later, the dragon, seeing the building, said that it was not surprising that she had stooped to hiring thieves and was angry himself. If he lived in a castle with only one tower, he reported seeing a cat on the coat of arms of this castle where they arrived. When all the dragons came out, everyone shouted that it was a dragon and that it was impossible to retreat in any case. The dragon was wondering what the marquise meant, and the young man explained that it meant that the girl was a noble lady. Addressing his majesty after hearing about the noble lady, the dragon was wondering if the girl was a princess or an elven princess. The young man replied that he did not think so and asked that dragons really kidnap princesses. The dragon reported that sometimes this happened. At that moment, our heroes were standing near the gate to the castle and talking to the young man, and the dragon was trying to protect him with his wing, pretending that it was not dangerous for him, because at that moment a bunch of arrows from the tower were aiming at him. Our hero did not notice this and they continued to talk as if nothing had happened. The young man asked if the dragon ate them. At that moment he was dealing with the army that was approaching him from the tail. Having heard the questions that our hero asks the dragon, he asked if the young man considered him a savage, because he releases them back into the wild so that they make more princesses, he said. And after hearing this, our hero looked at the amazed servants and hoped that they were okay. At that moment, the princess came out and said that all this was enough, asking why the guys threatened her castle. Turning to the dragon tamer, the young man replied that the girl misunderstood the nature of their relationship, and the dragon said that he tamed him, looking at the princess that was not far from him. The dragon reported that he was Vainker the Night-Slayer, king of the Albane Mountains, the great calamity of this era. Turning to the princess, the dragon said that she had sent bandits for his silver rapier, thereby interrupting his peaceful sleep. He demanded half of the cattle as compensation, as well as 1,000 gold coins that he was promised for his treasures. Hearing this, the princess said that if the dragon demanded half of the cattle, the marquise said it was completely absurd. The dragon, hearing this, said that he was forced to fly for 2 hours to get here. He burned a kilogram of fat and felt wild disgust at the smell of their peasants' manure. Hearing this, Victor said that his majesty also burned down the local forest on the way here, by order of the Count of Provence. The dragon also added that he owed him 6,000 gold for this service. Point to the badge so that the dragon on his neck says that he was an adventurer of the greatest of those whom their entire insignificant race knew. The princess, addressing the dragon, said that if she gave him what he wanted, would he leave her lands? Dakin said that it all depends on whether she still has a task for him, and the girl said that she did not have them, so she had to bring Count Gilbert for an explanation and tell the cooks to prepare a feast for King Vainker. And addressing everyone else, the princess asked to prepare a feast for a problematic guest with a secret ingredient. Hearing this, her servants said that they would order the cooks to add the maximum dose. The princess said that they would arrange a feast and provide a reward for a noble act. She hoped that they would forgive them for their tactlessness, and hearing this, the dragon agreed, saying that only if they had good cattle. Lying in the backyard, the dragon saw the food that was being carried directly to him. When he saw it, he thought about what a wonderful feast it was and thought that he should have flown here more often. At this moment, the men who were watching the dragon began to approach our hero, and seeing this, the dragon told the attendant whether this little man was part of the feast, to which the young man said that he was not sure about it. And the man who was next to them said that he was Gilbert of Provence, and when the dragon heard this, he asked if it was the person who issued the request for trolls, and the man said that it was him. He petitioned the marquise for help to get rid of them before their numbers increased, so Arden solved this problem. The man said in horror, looking at the dragon right in front of him, Then the dragon said that he took his duties seriously and, turning to the servant, said that he could eat leftovers so that no one would say that Vainker was starving his staff. Looking at the dish that was right in front of him, our hero thought that Gilbert was somehow too nervous about something, because he did not look at our hero at all when he talked to him, and the young man thought about the special ingredient that the Marquise was talking about. It was interesting whether it was cyanide or arsenic. Then, turning to the dragon, our hero said that he could not take away the food from His Majesty, saying that it was all his. After hearing this, the dragon asked what kind of executive servant and said that the Count had come here to deliver his reward. The Count, standing next to the bags of gold, said that along with the gift that the Marquise presents in as an apology, he said that it was his duty as her vassal. Trying to put food in his mouth, the dragon thought about what a good servant he was. Turning to the Count, the servant Victor had to count the coins and not even try to steal at least one. And the young man asked him not to worry, because he regrets every day that he stole from him. At that moment the dragon chewed his food, which was poisoned, saying that the young man was doing the right thing. Then a friend of his received an alert from the system, and looking carefully, the dragon saw that since he had digested the poison as a real champion, he earned 1 resistance to poisons. After hearing about the resistance to poisons, the dragon asked the criminal what was the poison. Was it a seasoning? The young man asked did the dragon not know what poison was. Then the dragon said that he knew that this poison was not doing anything at this moment. The Count, who was standing nearby, began to sweat from the horror of what he was about to face. And our hero, addressing His Highness, said that it was a very bitter seasoning for special occasions. It was added only to very important guests. He turned to the dragon and talked about it. Could the dragon still ask about it? After hearing this, the dragon asked if it was added to such a special guest as he. At that moment, all those watching the dragon were completely shocked that it wasn't poisoned. Addressing everyone, the dragon said to bring him more of this special seasoning, because he had not tasted this taste. Our hero, looking at them, thought that he knew this would happen. Did they seriously want to poison the dragon? They thought they could kill him like a giant rat, or that the young man was interested. At this moment, the Count turned to our hero, saying that he owed him his life, and the young man, looking at the dragon, hoped that everyone would be happy, because they had just made him even stronger. The dragon, having eaten all the food, fell asleep peacefully, and the young man, standing not far from him, thought that when the Marquise invited him to breakfast, he expected to see another poison dish, and not a real, absolutely normal breakfast, our hero thought, looking at the dish that stood right in front of him. But looking at the Marquise that was right in front of the young man, he thought that it seemed to him that the girl just wanted to talk to someone. At that moment, he was eating his breakfast, and several crossbows were aimed at him so that he could not do anything to the Marquise, who was sitting on the other side of the table. She screamed that it was humiliating. The red dragon emptied their storeroom, and then decided to take a nap at her gate, she said, addressing our hero, thinking that for what the gods had sent this disaster on her. The next moment, turning to the Count, she asked if the dragon was still there, and he said that it was so, because they thought that by this time the poison should have already killed this dragon 3 times. Finishing his breakfast, our hero asked why there was such a quantity of poison to the princess at all, after which she said that it was a post-war tactic, and turning to Victor, she asked what level the young man had. Sipping from his glass, our hero said that he had level 7, addressing his mistress. After hearing that the guy was level 7 and he was able to tame the dragon at this level, the Marquise said that she did not believe him. Hearing this, our hero asked if he really looked like a dragon tamer in her opinion. This creature was with the power of destruction in the flesh. The Count sitting opposite him also thought that the dragon was listening to our hero and said that the young man saved his life. Victor said that all he could do slightly was redirect this dragon and hope that he wouldn't if he incinerated too many houses. Hearing this, the Marquise said that they could attack him while he was sleeping. Our hero, spreading his hands to the side, said that, of course, it was so, because if they attack him, they will give him a better perk or free levels. Hearing this, the guards pointed crossbows at our hero and told the young man to watch his tongue. The next moment, the Marquise asked where our hero was from, and our hero explained that he was from America, Earth. He was called to this world, but then the young man thought that of course he died first. The young man showed a sign on his hand, the sign of a dice. The girl said that it was worth guessing. Only the chosen one of the god of luck could make friends with the dragon. Hearing about luck, the young man could not agree with her, thinking to himself about it, because it was a crazy dice that kidnapped him. I think that this world was not like that. That's what he was thinking about. Victor didn't like that there was everyone here who wanted to eat him or rob him. It was like being stuck in the Middle Ages. You couldn't even take a bath. The angry young man was thinking while sitting at the table while several crossbows were pointed at him again. Addressing his new acquaintances, he told them to listen and just not try to steal from this dragon anymore. They just didn't need to do it, the young man explained to the count, addressing the lady. After listening to our hero, he talked about what the girl and the rapier were needed for in general. The Marquise reported that it was a lost heirloom, but she did not know that this relic was in the claws of a dragon. After hearing that the girl called his name, our hero asked if this dragon was really so famous. She said that he was the strongest dragon of the continent. It was said that he single-handedly ate a level 70 knight. Monsters have inhabited these lands since the end of the 100 Years' War, explained to our hero while he ate and listened attentively. Also not to mention that the dragon destroys entire forests filled with animals in a matter of seconds. The Marquise said that although the devastation of her storerooms caused terrible damage, they thought that they could use this dragon, since he wanted to be an adventurer. They could send him on a perilous mission, she thought, and offered it to everyone else. For example, the murder of the demon king Brandon Moore or the farmer Pridaean. Either die or win, a win-win situation for them. Victor informed his new acquaintances that the dragon would not do anything without a good reward and asked if they could pay him if he coped. The Marquise said that she would inform His Majesty and the Shining Knight they would sort it out, because our hero asked if there were any villains who should be punished with the dragon flame. At this moment, the Count who was sitting next to him was sweating and saying that the Scorchers, mercenaries who were left without work after the end of the 100 Years' War, are now engaged in banditry. While our heroes were talking, suddenly someone called him by name, addressing him as a servant. Hearing this, they were all scared. It was a dragon that woke up and told the acolyte to go straight to him to take his shiny treasures. Looking at the dragon, our hero realized that he had almost forgotten about it, and addressing everyone else, he asked if they had a big bag and maybe a fire resistance potion. After hearing this, the Marquise asked if the young man had already done enough by addressing him. Then our hero began to pray again, pointing towards the Marquis, saying that if she did not give them to him, he would tell the dragon to keep them under lock and key, and there was still food left. After hearing this, the Marquise was beside herself with anger, saying that the young man was probably a monster. It was getting close to sunset, and the dragon, looking at the young man and addressing him to the servant, asked what he was talking about with that cat this morning. The young man explained that he had scolded the Marquis for trying to improve his great majesty. Our hero spoke to the dragon. After hearing what the guy said, the dragon thought that it was a good idea, because he wouldn't want to eat it for lunch next time. Then the young man said that apparently quite good treasures fell out of the monsters he defeated yesterday. His class perk, that is, our hero's trained eye, allows him to recognize magical items of their value. What he came across was a ring of fire resistance, a wyvern summoning horn, and a fire bomb necklace, as well as a pair of solar bracers. The dragon asked what was about his new perk about poison resistance, because he also told him that he could only get for every 2 levels. Our hero, addressing the dragon, said that this only applies to class perks. Personal perks such as his poison resistance can be obtained by fulfilling special secretive conditions, but they were quite rare, and explained to the young men. Hearing this, the dragon asked if anyone besides the dragon would open it for him, and now the young man had to put the treasure in a bag, and they would return to his lair to find another easy task, he explained. The young man said that about this to His Majesty, addressing the dragon of the young man. He said that he was able to survive in this forest only thanks to the Marquis's potion. Why did he need this ring or handcuffs? He asked, and the dragon explained that they were shiny, which means they would look good in his treasury. And our hero explained that he would have coped with his duties better with good equipment, addressing His Majesty, who, upon hearing this, turned to the servant, saying that he did not look better with the ring. All people look the same, he explained, and the young man thanked His Majesty for the courtesy of the remark. The young man, addressing the dragon, said that he meant that the ring would make him more resistant to the fire of his hands, allow him to summon a wyvern, and the bracers would make him stronger in the sun. When the dragon heard this, he asked why, if it was possible to become stronger by wearing handcuffs. It was amazing, he would try them on right away. The young man explained that these handcuffs would not fit the dragon, because they were human-sized. The dragon, hearing this, asked why his perk gave him a human-sized treasure. It was sabotage and a defect. He shouted to the whole street, and the dragon said that he would lend the young man his items because his generosity knew no bounds. Our hero thanked him, and then the dragon asked how to get a park with a trained eye. The young man explained that the dragon would need Bundy levels, and the dragon asked if it was possible to have several classes. The young man reported that as much as he could get, but the total limit of the level is 100. After that you ascend to the level of the gods or something like that. our hero explained again, spreading his hands in the air. Upon hearing this, the dragon said that then he would reach the cellular level, and his servant at level 99 at that moment. Our hero thanked his majesty, saying whether he would allow him to offer a task. The dragon persuaded that only if they paid well, then the young man could offer him a task, and the young man explained that he had posters with a reward for 3 leaders of bandits who committed countless war crimes. Gustave Lemuret Ogre Ogron, gold 5,000, Francois Villemain gold 10,000, gold Duchess Elinor of Euskal offers a reward for their heads. Hearing this, the dragon could not believe his ears. Our hero explained that for this task there will be 20,000 in total, officially. Hearing this, the dragon said that they were skipping these tasks. The young man understood that this was how it should have been. Then the next moment the dragon realized that there was something official. He decided to ask again. The young man explained that he was sure that the Duchess for killing her enemies gave him a reward from under the floor, a bigger reward. If she was ready to offer more, why would she not write about it in the request? Why was it some kind of magical ritual because of the floor? The guy asked to strengthen from taxes, referring to his majesty, and also that let the king take a share of any reward offered through adventurers. Therefore, after hearing about a tenth, the dragon said that it was a robbery. It is not surprising that the young man became a thief. The precursor of his pathetic race is a robber, and it may be this received ritual then turning into a dragon. The young man warned that tax evasion of villages is a village and a respected human tradition. In addition, His Majesty the Dragon, I am sure that the Duchess will give out a worthy reward, more than people, and the dragon said that it would be better if she did so, telling the servant that they would immediately track down his fellow thieves, and then looking at the dragon that was leaving in his. Our hero thought that he believed him and maybe he will still serve for the good. Night came and the young man said that before them was Hodmer, the largest port in the Duchy of Euskal. The dragon saw only a hotbed of weakness. Then one of the girls said that it couldn't be said better. Then someone addressed her as a mistress, saying that it was a place that she wanted to plunder and whether it was so. And looking at the people, the girl thought that they had to ruin the city, get her what she read and would be generously rewarded. The demon king Brandon Mower guarantees it. Turning to the princess and asking if she would mind if they had a little fun with him now, and the mistress, addressing her subordinates, said that the main thing was for them to stay alive. Her agent would stay in touch. Then they started talking about the fact that they have standing defenders, asking Wilmain, and the young man who stood next to the armor said that no one was above the 20th level, addressing Gustav. Hearing this, Gustav said that it was a shame because the killing of peasants is beginning to bother which of them will lead the offensive, he said. Then a friend appeared, Ogron, who said that he would burn the whole village, but stood nearby behind our heroes saying that no one would stand in his way. Vainker, addressing our hero, asked why they hadn't arrived yet. The young man said that they hadn't arrived yet because Ogron was last seen at Hodmer's, and this is Poynton. And then the dragon, hearing what the young man was saying, asked him how he knew all this, because all the dirty human villages looked the same. Addressing the guy, said the dragon. The young man reported that he thought that their goal was the next city, to which the dragon was very surprised, asked why not this one that they flew over, and the young man explained to him that because of the fire they did not need this city at this moment. The Ogden that stood below in the fire itself said that he would eat their children. Everyone, seeing the dragon, said that it was necessary to keep the formation, because they needed even more time to evacuate. The soldiers could not evacuate everyone so quickly. The next moment they were saying that they had to look up, thinking that the organ had a dragon. Turning to the servant, the dragon asked who he could land on. Seeing people from below, the young man said that when attacking, addressing His Majesty, people were very scared when they saw the dragon, and when they landed they had to cover their face with their hands from the might of the dragon. At that moment, the ogre shouted that the dragons were not scary, addressing the people who were running away. Then the dragon, seeing the ogre, asked which of them was huge, and he replied that he was standing in front of him, that it was him. Seeing his dragon, thought that it was not true and asked which of them was huge. Then the young man turned to His Majesty and said that in front of him was the org they needed. Then, seeing the monster in front of him, the dragon asked again and said that it was a cyclops, not a mountain, because those had 2 eyes. But the young man reported that it was an ogron, and the ogre shouted to the dragon that there was no other ogren. He shed his blood for the midshipman, all to the last drop, but instead of gold, he gave him a dirt farm. And then the dragon said that if it was a cyclops, and not an ogre, then why is his name Ogre Horn? Ogron's name is huge, he said, because he eats people. Turning to the dragon, his opponent said. Hearing about the fact that they also eat people, the dragon stared at his opponent. Then the one bringing his big axe said that Ogden was a warrior, and now the one who was in front of him had to die. Turning to the dragon he spoke, but the next moment the dragon simply ate the ogre, leaving only half of his torso. Seeing this, our hero and everyone who saw this picture were insanely surprised, because the guy realized that the dragon had just eaten an ogre that was right in front of him. And the dragon, as if nothing had happened, was thinking about what a delicious dish it was, saying that the Cyclops nut house tasted like salted pork and it was so delicious that he wanted more. Victor thought about the need to protect the inhabitants until all sorts of thoughts came to his mind, thinking about the dragon and looking at him. The next moment, pointing to the side, the young man asked how it was about having a snack with bandits for dessert, addressing the dragon. The dragon said that when he saw the bandits, the dragon immediately turned around and threw them into his mouth, saying that you were wonderful, because they tasted like veal. Then the commander of the troops said that they had to retreat, because they saw how the dragon eats everything. People began to run away to the side and the dragon, looking after them, told them to come back because he was too noble to chase them. After a while, he got fed up playing to the servant that he got a new level and asked where all these +1 increases go, because he got a noble class level and a snobbery perk class, which meant that the dragon deals more damage to ignoble targets and receives less damage from them. Victor explained that the dragon could look at everything by saying the menu aloud, and then turning to his majesty. He asked if the dragon had not noticed this before, to which he proudly said that of course he noticed everything, just checking his knowledge by addressing our hero. And the young man replied that it was an honor for him. The next moment, the dragon called up the menu and it was written on it about his characteristics, after seeing about the B+B squad and double experience. He was very surprised. After resting here, the dragon saw people and looking at him, they did not understand what would happen next to them. Because the dragon killed everyone and people were very scared, thinking that they would be next. Turning to the servant, the dragon said that the atmosphere was too heavy, it was necessary to sing his praises to cheer up these gloomy people. And then our hero, raising his hands, began to sing that the dragon Vainker was the best dragon and continued. At this moment all the people raised their hands and also started shouting it. The dragon thanked him and said that he deserved it. After all, he was an adventurer alarmist and flew to save people, and now, addressing people, the dragon ordered them to bring him cattle. Victor, addressing people, asked who was in charge here, and then one of the guys said that the measure was killed, so probably a representative of the guild, and pointed the finger at the girl. Seeing her friend, who said that it just couldn't be, why Victor and the dragon were right in front of her again. Charlene was in front of our guys. Once they talked about the fact that Charlene wanted to leave for Alabama, because the young man said that the village would not be the same without her. The girl said that she sent a request to the guild to transfer as far as possible from Weiner's lair, and they agreed. And then the young man asked where she was going, and the girl replied that in Hodmer. She dreamed of a beautiful beach and peaceful castles and no dragon. It was just the perfect solution for her. So when she got back to our heroes, she thought that fate was probably mocking her. A few hours later, the dragon lay peacefully and waited for his offering to be brought to him. So heading to his majesty, our hero said that they were already familiar with Charlene. She was the acting mayor and the new head of the guild, the guy explained, and this Henry, a class scientist. He wanted to talk about his chosen career. They all came up to the dragon that was lying and resting. And then Charlene said that on behalf of Hammer, she wanted the dragon to let her give him the highest award of the City of Keys. Go out and turn on the dragon, only asked where his money was, to which the girl replied that everything was under control. Turning to his majesty, and she reported his deed to the Duchess. She would send to the military to deliver his reward, treated the dragon Charlene. And she also couldn't believe she was saying this, but for their merits, they are given a free week stay in the guild. Upon hearing this, Victor asked if there was a lava bath there, to which Charlene replied that of course there was no such thing. And the dragon, looking at the girl, could not believe that their kind was so backward, because he would sleep on warm sand, but doubted that his lackey shared his quality standards. Victor reported that he would definitely enjoy a nice warm bed. Here the scientists, turning to Vainker, said that his friend Victor told them that his majesty needed advice about the classes of the system, to which the dragon would hear how the scientist addressed him, thought that it was not entirely polite, said that he should have addressed him in italics. What else was he? There was a friend, after all. A servant or something other. The scientist only asked if his majesty had super feelings perk. The next moment a table came out that showed personal perks: dragon fire breath, great serpent, and immunity to fire, red dragon vitality, dragon arrogance, dragon scales, super feelings, radar on princesses, poison resistance, and also class take care of old money, and snobbery. The dragon replied that apparently everything was like that and asked how the scientists found out about it. At that moment Charlene came up and said that Henry, although a vile expert on classes for the locals, he acts as an advisor on the development of classes and characteristics, to which the scientist looked at the girl and shaved that he did not know that dragons could getting a class is a completely new discovery. The dragon also did not know about this and asked what kind of system it was in general. And then the scientist explained that you were a supernatural system opened by the god of the dice during your first roll when it was still a reasonable artifact of the class representing powerful rolls, the receipt of which guarantees enormous strength. And the dragon asked if the scientist was sure that the system was not invented by dragons. Then I turned to His Highness. The old man said that Bone was the first intelligent being to receive the class. The scientist said that although Bone never claimed to have created the system, all the evidence indicates that she activated it by addressing people. The dragon said that means they had no evidence that the dragons did not create this system first. It turns out that the system was invented by the dragons to gain wealth and power. Turning to the little man Henry, the dragon reported that he wanted more levels of a nobleman. After hearing this, the dragon Henry asked if the dragon was moderate. It was impossible for the nobleman to guess. There were very few important perks in it, such as a scholarship that moves, grants money, the scientist explained to the dragon. After hearing about the money, the dragon moved closer to the man and asked about when and where they were given out, to which the scientists reported that it happens at the level of 9 noblemen. Then the dragon thought about what could make him even richer. The scientists replied that it was a merchant or bankers, to which the dragon said that trading is the occupation of servants. The dragon does not contain shops. Henry also explained that the craft class usually receives an award for materials of the best quality of the class, divided into 5 categories: fighters, spellcasters, cheats, artisans, and monsters. Charlene said that it was insulting to admit, but apparently the world needed help to put pressure on the royal army, so they want to steal ships and escape from the country. Even after the death of a huge one, they will most likely return, the girl said. After hearing about it, the dragon said that it was a great free experience and you don't even have to chase them. I asked what class can make him rich and dragon. The scientist said that maybe it was a gambler. They have intelligence and skill, as well as luck, a few useful perks for the shape of gold. After hearing this about dragons, he did not understand anything at all. Then turning to His Majesty, and they explained to him that he gets a level and can increase the characteristics in accordance with the growth of E means 0% chance of increasing the characteristics of D 25 seconds 50 B 75 a 100. The chance of increasing by 1 when achieving a smart enough in class to perform certain tasks. Listening to all this, the dragon said that it was very boring, and turning to the attendant said that he was in his new class manager and had to deal with it, to which Victor did not understand at all why he had to deal with it again. The dragon promised that he was too important as a dragon to bother with all these details. He left the rest to his servant, telling the merchant that he was not paid enough to listen to this nonsense. To which Victor, addressing the dragon, said that everything was going so well talking about His Majesty, and he knew that he had communicated with Charlene before. But what were the chances that she seemed to be here with him? Perhaps it was his second chance, the young man said again, looking at the dragon. After hearing this, the dragon said that he understood everything, that the young man wants to reproduce to lay eggs in a human woman. Our hero, hearing what the dragon said, was completely shocked and said that His Majesty's wording had ruined everything. Then, turning to the servant, he said that he would never succeed in life if he did not take a bath after sniffing himself. Our hero thought about the bath, and the next moment the dragon told the servants that he wanted to spare his feelings in front of other monkeys, but he stank like burning droppings. And the dragon said that the young man would never reproduce with such a smell, but he swore as his master that he had done everything to ensure the continuation of his kind. After hearing this, our hero asked if the dragon would really do it for him. Then the dragon said that of course, because he was able to update his stock of servants. Then our hero thought about that he wouldn't let any of his future children near him. The dragon also told the servant that everything was for his own good. He ordered the young man to swim in the sea, to which our hero said that he would take a hot bath in the hotel. At this moment, the dragon was saying that our hero could go to reproduce and no longer sin, to which I again listened to the dragon's formulation. Our hero did not know what to answer at all. Our hero walked from the dragon, called up the menu to see what was happening in it, and said that how exciting it was. Once in the hotel, the hero thought that this was what he needed, because he did not take a hot bath for the whole thing, but still did not think that after meeting that dragon and he would again have the opportunity to relax lying in the bathroom. Our hero thought. They were even promoted to adventurers of the copper rank. But Na had no idea what to do with him, and Vainker wanted to leave everything, even garbage, at this moment. While our hero was relaxing, a scientist burst into him and turning to Victor finally found him, which scared the young man very much. Turning around from the bath, our hero asked Henry why he was in his bathroom, to which the scientist said that he could not wait, but studied their case, and it really did not give him any peace, since the next moment he saw that our hero had a mark of knight blades on his hand, because it was the most dangerous criminal syndicate of the city. The young man replied that maybe. Then Sir Henry asked Victor why he had a tattoo of the Thieves' Guild on his shoulder. The young man, turning away, said that it was possible to call them the laws of redistribute private property, and he left them when he became an adventurer, because he thought that at least this is what he told himself. No one really leaves the knight blades. So turning to Henry, he said that if he was smart, he would keep quiet about this guy. Confused and a little panicked, he said that he understood everything. And the next moment I smile. He asked what about the Crusader. After hearing this, our hero asked again, because he did not understand what Henry was talking about. And Henry also explained that it was a class, because his dragon was the greatest benefit from the growth of statistics, and perks would make him invincible. After hearing this, our hero asked if Henry was seriously thinking of making the dragon even more invincible. After hearing this about Henry lived, that of course it was so. Wasn't our hero's job in this? The young man said that it was so, but he wasn't going to do it well, and also that you were for his dragon. Asked Victor Henry, because here what I got it wrong. Henry would have asked Viktorov right now to imagine the potential for optimization. But the young man said that this dragon was only interested in gold, and he was already strong enough to eat cyclops like chicken nuggets. So if Henry was not offered a class for gold farming without doing the work of servants, then this dragon would not eat him. At this moment he had a window systems. Scientists reported that our hero received a monster squire class for dragon service, so it's natural that he earns work experience, not his. But our hero did not understand at all how he had just received the monster squire level on the sign. Said that the young man received the monster armament level of the minions instructor. His minions get 50% more experience fighting in the ranks, and the young man understood that this only confirmed his words. But the instructor Dust from Luzhniki, what was it? The class that wants him to make friends with other dragons. Our hero asked himself the question. The young man reported that Vainker would earn levels in the noble class until he received the primary one, and then we would need a new class to earn money. Then Henry reported that there might be a gladiator fighting class. His perks give a reward for impressing the crowd. The dragons have a lot of strength and charisma. Samara to use this cool full. And the young man talks to Henry was thinking to himself about whether he should have actually told Weiner about it, because he was a narcissistic goat. But he kind of saved the city, and let's call it damage minimization. The young man thought to himself. Turning to Henry, he asked if he had documents for this class. Then Henry, approaching our hero, said that he also had suggestions for Victor, asking if he had a talisman chosen by a bone, because it meant at each level he had a 10% chance to increase intelligence and luck, and he would turn out a good caster. Turning away from Henry, the young man said that in fact, maybe what he wanted to say sounded childish, but could the class contribute to his personal life by saying that his friend was interested in asking Henry about it? He said whether his friend had a level of charisma. The young man said that his friend was as smart as he was. After hearing this, Henry confirmed that his friend had a middle class and said that he would recommend the class of a devilish libertine. Discovered by Ludovic Van, however, he has a very high entry threshold. You need to have 50 points of charisma and vitality and dexterity, and you also need to survive a special demonic ritual. After hearing this, our hero said that he did not want to take this class at all. Realizing that Henry was standing very close to him, the young man asked him to move away. Henry, leaving, told the guy not to worry, because he would pick up the perfect class progression for his friend, thinking that really everyone on this planet is going crazy about class progression. For diligent study of the class system, as well as a way to improve his personal life, the young man earned a personal observer perk. He can instantly determine the class levels of the one they look at, and if the total level of the goal is equal to or below it. If the level of the goal exceeds it, then they will only see its total class level. He thought about that. At least the new perk will be useful. Lying down in the bath, he thought that at last he felt loneliness, no hassle with dragons, at least in the next few hours. Then someone turned to him, and turning around, the young man asked what he needed from him. And then he looked and saw that Charlene was next to him, and turning to the young man, a little embarrassed, Charlene asked if she had interrupted Victor on the weekend. The young man did not understand at all what she was doing here. Charlene explained that she was in charge of this place, referring to Victor. This is the guild and the main hotel. The young man said that it was so, but she said that he could live in this room, so he settled here. The young man answered, and the girl said that he was given a great space, just because no one. I didn't want to argue with the 18-meter dragon outside. Addressing Victor, she said that the young man destroyed her guild. Victor, addressing Charlene, said that it wasn't him, but Vainker destroyed Alibine entirely, if he hadn't warned him at all. To which Charlene said that this dragon woke up only because the young man tried to steal something from him, and ours said that if it wasn't for him, then someone else, I would have taken this quest and everything could have ended even worse. Besides, despite all its shortcomings, the military core of this city from bandits, unless the girl thought that the guards could defeat the ogre themselves. And Victor told Charlene that he had done everything he could in this situation and asked her to do in his place. Then thinking about it, Charlene said that it really was so. Perhaps she could not blame the young man for doing everything in his power when faced with a giant dragon. For her, it was also a great stress. Then the young man accepted her such apologies. Taking a towel and throwing it, Victor said that this was not a reason to do nothing all day. It was necessary to get dressed, because the girl had a job for him. Grabbing a towel, our hero said that of course he would help her, but he wanted to ask what the girl's plans were for the evening. To which she replied that it was work, and our hero said that he just wanted to tell her that he was free after work. Well, the girl, leaving, was burning for the guy to go to the basement and deal with the rats. When he heard about the rats, he said that it was an adventurous hazing, but she said it didn't matter, the young man had to deal with it, because she said so. The young man, taking his torch and going down to the basement, thought that he would do anything for love. He searched the entire basement, but did not find any rats. But the girl would not send him here for no reason. The next moment he noticed something. Someone was standing in the corner and talking about what needed to be remembered and most importantly put into the shower, and it was necessary to speak with feeling and work out the benefits. Looking at this, our hero realized that they were kobolds. Then suddenly they turned around and saw our hero, who was not standing behind not far from them. When they saw the guy, they did not say that you are a man, and the commander told everyone that it was necessary to listen because it was time for choreography. It was necessary to speak to feelings, and then the young man would tremble for fear of starting to speak. They said that they did not fight for justice and live for destruction, and did not attack under the cover of night and strive for discord. They are kobolds conductors. Having seen this, our hero did not understand at all what was happening in front of him. Then realizing that they said everything correctly, they thought that they had mastered the choreography. They smeared this man on the floor, and the next moment many thought that maybe it was worth adding the motto of the word chaos because it sounded great, dancing and saying kobolds. Our hero, looking at it all with a torch, he said that it seemed to him that blue did not get into the rhythm. Turning to the kobolds, the young man said that, in addition, if they wanted everything to be as it should be, then they needed a commander. For example, a white alligator. When they heard this, they asked how the young man dares to criticize their performance. Mammals are able to appreciate real art. To which the young man said that she was too modern, and addressing the guys, they called him stupid. Riveting. Pineapple wisdom revealed to them the power because they had no sense of style and had to kill people. One of the kobolds began to throw our hero, and the other powers said that it was necessary to wait, because the young man understood them, and our hero said that he understood them perfectly. It looks like his first kindred of monsters still works. Looking at monsters, our hero thought. Then suddenly he smelled his friends, realized that he smelled like a dragon from him, which the young man did not understand. He had just taken a bath, then thought that maybe he could take advantage of this, and turning to the kobold, he said that he was Victor Dalton, the head of His Majesty's dragon Vainker staff. They had to hold in front of him or be eaten. When they heard about the head of the dragon staff, they said that it was the real head of the servants. They did not have armor, they had to ask for peace, and listening to what charisma the guys had, they said that they practically felt it. The next moment the young man took that they had to bring their greatest treasure, and then he would save their lives. They all quickly headed into the tunnel, and our hero thought that he was starting to feel guilty, because they were like children. Suddenly they brought him treasures. When they saw it, they did not understand if it was a tablet, but that one of the guys was playing that it was a pineapple. It was wise to keep all the darkest secrets of the universe. Looking at the tablet in front of him, the young man noticed unsurprisingly that this perverted them. I heard that sometimes things of the earth get into the city. I wonder what is in the closed files. We will need time to open this. Looking at the tablet, our hero thought our friend here, one of the Gollans, saw that the young man could use the power of wisdom nano-s and asked to take them with him. For what our hero did not understand at all where he was supposed to take them. They turned to him and said that the young man was the head of the mighty head of the staff and had to accept him as servants of his dragon lord. They have no work experience, but they will learn diligently and quickly, to which he turns to the guys saying that he understands for them that the winners and his majesty can eat them, but does not say that for the kit the dishonor is greater than being eaten by a dragon. There too is to serve these substances on the creation in all possible ways. Victor, agreeing, said that they should stop looking at him like that. He would take them as interns and as unpaid interns. This is a huge opportunity for future career growth, having fun and rejoicing that they finally danced and had fun at Golden and became interns. They thought that there was this kind of responsibility. They would not disappoint their dragon lord. Turning to the chief, our sin, calling the window of systems, said that the more he behaved like a location, he became stronger, and where was justice in this? At that moment showed him that he had received 2 levels of monster squires. Now he could study the monster's skill after as they learn or use them against him. The young man is also considered a monster for the criteria of access to the class. Suddenly, addressing him as a servant, and he said that it was his majesty. One working day began saying. After hearing this, the guys said that he had such an imperious voice, but at that moment there were caps on his head to the Torah that he had to deal with the dragon until he destroyed everything. Suddenly she saw that it was kobold, and the young man said that it was definitely not rats. Charlene understood why the mousetraps didn't work. Returning to Vainker, our hero stood with the bonded ones around him, and Weiner said he was serving, that he understood that not having succeeded in reproduction, he engaged in adoption. But the kobolds, addressing the dragon, said that it was a real dragon and that he was even more than they thought. Addressing the mighty Lord Dragon, they asked to accept him, to accept them miserable worms in your retinue. The dragon said that he of course accepted everyone and would always protect everyone's right to eternal service to him, always referring to his being. Our hero said that this was how his time was determined, and the dragon said that it was natural to turn to a servant, and he needed to hurry up. He taught robbers not far from the city, and he understood that he would be paid for eating them. Our hero said that it seemed to him that a bandit pays a chair of gold for his head, and for the leaders it reaches 1,000. Addressing the servant, the dragon said that it was time to fulfill the meaning of his life. It was time to increase his treasury, and our hero, together with new friends and his big dragon, set off on a new journey. Henry asked for Miss Laver and said that he had come. Then meeting him, the girl said that it was nice of him to visit her. When he was notified that their beloved Romeo would visit, Henry decided that he could not miss this opportunity. He had the honor, which he could not miss. Addressing Miss Laver, he said, when she asked to be called simply Lucy, even though she shot down Queen's University, she never forgot her humble roots. Henry asked if he could be interested in why the girl hid most of her classes, because looking at her classes, he saw absolutely nothing. She said that he could know what academic rivalry could be. She is one of the students of the Archmage of Notre Dame. Many want to be in her place and are ready to do anything for this. The girl said that, in particular, she studied the spell in areas not yet recognized by the university. She would have problems if they found out about them before she published her dissertation. She asked Henry to come in, because they could continue their discussion inside. Going inside, Henry thought that he looked bigger inside than outside, and whether the girl used a space-changing spell. Closing the door, said that he should have said that it was the work of foreign owners. She was one of their mentor. This is the one. Henry announced that she must have been a powerful magician. The girl said that she studied better. He also asked what a magician of this caliber was doing in this nice town. The girl said that her teacher wanted her to look after a secret project in Hodmer, so he asked Henry not to spread about her presence here, and Henry said that he had not told anyone about her arrival. Henry thought she would be interested in his discovery. Showing the paper on which the Squire of the Monster was written, the girl said that she had never heard of this class before. This is a whole new class of monsters, and the dragon Vainker has earned levels. This is not one case of getting levels by a reasonable monster, but this is one similar case for a dragon. Henry said he would like to study him better, but Charlene, the guild manager, said that the Duchess would soon send knights after him. Then the girl said that she would not count on the knights in the matter of eliminating Weiner. The dragon's name is Nightslayer, but she said that they could discuss it in her office. I'm sure there was a huge potential in his research. Going into the office, Henry said that her words warmed his heart, and the girl thought that the gentleman had to agree here. The next moment he asked her a question. He did not hear an answer, and the door was already closed. Before Henry was the Scorcher leader Gustave Lamurel. He realized that it must be Lucy's friend, should have been right in front of him, and he was greeted by a man addressing a dear guest, and that his name was Francois Villemain. He is the captain of the Scorchers, as is his comrade Gustav. He was sure that Henry had heard a lot of terrible things about them, said that they were all true. Then Henry would ask what they had done to Miss Oliver, was she really a hostage, and they would report that this was not the case. Her mistress was their mistress. She agreed to provide them with shelter here if they would help her student in empirical research. Then Henry said that people would notice his disappearance if they killed him, but they said that he would still be dead, then said that they were not barbarians and should have talked first. Contrary to what Henry thought of them, the Scorchers were not originally bandits. They fought bravely for the midshipmen during the 100 Years' War. Unfortunately, with the end of the war, their respected profession, which includes the massacre of people and the burning of their villages, is no longer considered politically correct. They were asked to take up farming as peasants, whether Henry represented it. Fortunately, His Dark Majesty Brandon Moore of Ishvania has proposed an alternative solution. He gave them a good sum to retire, as well as a refuge if they burned down the Gardamain district and returned the artifact. Unfortunately for them, Hodmer was one of their personal goals, saying that there was nothing personal about it, referring to Henry. Also addressing Henry, he explained that they had a big problem and Henry thought about the dragon. Because the giant dragon devouring their people for breakfast not only defeated the Ogron, but now the royal army was approaching them. Financial well-being is under threat. They interrogated those two. They said that the dragon has a master. At that moment, one of the men pointed at the two from behind. They had to pat them until they gave out the name Victor. Gustav said that everything was not quite right, because one of them spoke when he saw that he had turned the second into a zombie. Yes, but then Gustav was given a bandit soldier to stab him, he said. To help him earn a level, Gustav explained. Then they started to quarrel and one of them said that the guy earned a level from this serf, Lucky Beginners, and said that he missed the good old days when he got experience for killing helpless peasants. Turning to his friend, the man says that they were sure that they could come to an agreement. But Henry saw that they would kill him anyway. Why was there anything to tell? Then the man said that they would certainly kill him, but would they torture him before that? Unlike his comrades, Francois did not like cruelty. He was not a savage. But Gustav spoke, said the priest of Disjester. Francois said that he was the holiest man in the world. He worshipped God. He liked his work. He said that he was tired of asking the scientist. If he did not speak, they would have to cut off one of his legs first. Gustav addressed him, asking Gustav to be silent. The man said that even though the scientist would die, they could definitely honor his last wish if he told them the truth. Speaking of the whole truth, then Henry asked if they could spare someone if he talked about his house and all his research was in it. He said, then Francois said, depending on whom, this Victor would die anyway. He was sorry. Approaching Henry, the man asked if he was ready to betray a friend in order to save his life's work. This is worthy of respect. A real man should leave behind a legacy. They will spare his house and his research. Then Henry told them everything. After hearing about the agent of the night markets, the guys said that it was strange, but Henry explained that the young man had left. The man explained that no one ever leaves the street blades. Maybe he has weaknesses and maybe he is greedy as a dragon. Then the man said that he runs errands for Charlene when she asks him, and the man said that it was useful information. Turning to Gustav, asking what he thinks they have no chance at all to defeat this dragon in battle. Or do they have? But Gustav said that he thought not. Then one of them, addressing Henry, saw that the dragon was stupid. The next moment they say they had to distract him and burn the city themselves to return the artifact, then escape the stolen ships. Gustav asked if a person was his partner. Speaking about Victor, he also said that they would figure it out themselves. They both have a level 2 times higher than his. Then, turning to Henry, they asked what was about him. However, they had to admit that his comrade Gustav has 3 levels in the traitor. The first perk of this class, Fake, hides the traitor's levels from detection by perks like Henry's. And the second is called the Joy of Betrayal. One of them was sure that a class scientist like Henry knew what had to be done, and Henry said that he was getting the experience of breaking a promise, to which the man said that he had already said that he was not a savage. Apparently the house would burn down like everyone else. Raising the sword over Henry, Gustav wanted to kill him, but Francois asked him to stop, because he said it was too early. Then Gustav asked the man why he wanted to stop, because Henry was useless to them. Then the man said that he thought he would find another use for Henry. Just one. The next moment there was a scream. Addressing Mrs. Lucy, she said that she considered it a wise decision to leave those two in charge, because the girl said that she herself could get the artifact, and her mistress explained that this was necessary. addressing Lucy. They were expendable, but the girl was not. Besides, given her past experience interacting with dragons, the mistress decided that the girl would be unreliable. Lucy said that she thought she had redeemed her mistake by addressing the mistress, and she said that the girl thought completely wrong. The return of the Night Slayer is a serious cause for concern about her operations, and Lucy should have kept her informed of the dragon's movements, but not to interfere until she told and asked not to disappoint her. Lucy, addressing the mistress, said that everything would be as she wished. The mistress disappeared, and Lucy was left alone, thinking that this job was getting worse and worse every day. Vainker is a night killer. Like everyone else, he cared about the preservation of wildlife. He will carefully support the population of princesses so that they grow into queens and produce more princesses. But he will hunt one species to complete extermination. At that moment, someone called his name, and seeing a kobold that was not far away from him, he shouted that there were bandits, weeds from the animal world. Dealing with the bandits, the dragon said that he did not respect the environment, but she respected him, the dragon thought. At this moment, the kobold was chasing a man with whom the dragon was trying to deal, and Vainker was calling his servant, who was our hero, named Victor. Running up to him, the guy asked what happened, and the dragon said that this axe that was in his hands did not work, and the young man replied that he just had to wave it when they immobilized his opponent, saying that the dragon had to remember he had to kill his opponent, impress his fans, otherwise he won't open the gladiator class. Hearing about the fact that he had to do something very much, the dragon wondered, turning to our hero. The next moment he asked the deer mammal if he knew how dragons called pain, and swinging his axe over him, said that it was a Weiner. And the kobolds who were standing next to the dragon said that after killing a man they got their eyes in the blood and they were very unhappy. Looking at it all, Victor did not understand whether this was true. Dragons consider pain to be a birth defect, as Vainker had said earlier. At that moment, he was sent a letter saying that he had earned the gladiator level and he was a military arena where he could instantly get an average skill level with all melee weapons. The dragon reported that, of course, only mammals feel pain, and yet, addressing the acolyte, he said that he had to use an axe to get gladiator levels, telling the young man that it was completely impractical. Victor said that it was not so, addressing his majesty and saying that now he only needed to impress his fans with his ability to fight. At that moment, the dragon that was swinging his head with an axe in his mouth cut down trees, and despite all this, no one understood what was happening. But the dragon only rubbed his sore head. The next moment, talking about something else, he said that their human sticks and axes were terrible. Turning to the man Victor, he said that he continued to kill these scum. His perk, old money, everything is not activated, the dragon said. The next moment Victor was saying that he does not work for people, most likely so that the nobles do not kill peasants for the sake of treasures. The loot from these idiots is not so much, but it was better than nothing. Looking at the bag of gold, our hero said, to which the dragon said that it was not good enough for his treasury, and it was necessary to go further. Kobold walked ahead of the dragon and said that he did not feel the smell of others, turning to his highness saying that they had finished with all the opponents. Looking around, the dragon said that today there would be no more levels and no gold, and Victor said that they could always sell their belongings, talking about people with which they sorted out. Victor said that he could even use the profits to invest better equipment. After hearing about the word invest, the dragon did not understand what it was and asked our hero again. He explained that it was so when you give a little gold in exchange for something more valuable. Hearing about the fact that the dragon had to give away gold, for him it was the most terrible thing that could be heard. Looking at the dragon, Victor tried to calm him down and said that it was in exchange for something valuable. But the dragon absolutely did not want to give the gold. Did he really think that the man Victor was ill? Because the lack of reproduction must have a dangerous effect on his mental health. Looking at Victor, Vainker said, and the young man said that his majesty could not even imagine it. Then Victor said that who in their right mind would do such a thing? Because it was terrible to give away gold, to which the hero said that he suddenly realized that it was too much for his majesty. At that moment they were walking through the forest and continued their conversation. The dragon, addressing Victor, said that about the property of this scum. The dragon appointed Victor, and he interrupted him and asked if the dragon really wanted to appoint him treasurer and manager of the treasury. Having heard what Victor said, the dragon said that he did not want to do this for anything and asked not to dare touch his treasury. They tell the man Victor that he has already said that sales are the work of servants, and this is exactly what he and the kobolds will do. At that moment, the kobolds hung right on our hero, fearing the reaction of the dragon that was right in front of them. The dragon reported that they already had a name, talking about what the kobolds had come up with earlier. The dragon also said that they would get rid of garbage that was not shiny enough for his treasury, from everything except gold and jewelry to motivate everyone. He would allow them to leave 1/10 of their profits. Hearing this, the kobolds were happy, saying that they would really be paid for their work. Victor, looking at all this, could not believe that His Majesty was more generous than the king himself. The guy spoke to the dragon. Then, turning to Victor, the dragon said that he wanted to swear that their team would never pay taxes to this robber, would not give anything to any investments. The glorious name of Vainker could not be associated with this madness, the dragon said. And he also said that they would sell corpses, because he was already tired of eating people all the time. Hearing about the fact that the dragon wanted to sell the corpses, Victor asked His Majesty. Then the dragon said that wasn't their kind hunting monsters, collecting corpses and selling them in parts, and the young man explained that it was only for monsters and there were only parts of monsters. The next moment the dragon asked about what then do they do to people. Victor, surprised by the questions, said that he did not know how to answer this question and they simply left them to be eaten by animals. If you think about it, it was still unsanitary. Hearing this, and the dragon said that it was impossible to give anything else to the servant, and that he would find a way to get money for his surplus food. Addressing His Majesty, our hero talked about what it means that His Majesty wants him to open a store that will sell corpses and any junk, maybe something else, to which the dragon said that there was a lot of work. But the young man was his head of staff. He had to find time in between preparing it, progress through classes and training with kobolds. Turning to the dragon, our hero asked if he really wanted the young man to teach him a kobold class, and the dragon said that the guy did not represent his grandiose plans well. Turning to the servant Victor, a group of adventurer minions trained from the egg and performing quests until death, merchants selling junk and meat in each of their rundown villages and filling chests with gold will all work together to collect the greatest treasure of all time. Talking about his treasure, at this moment in the eyes of Weiner, money bars were talking. In the village, people were scurrying back and forth, and a man standing on the square was talking about everyone taking a look at the best products of the company, saying that really one of them was looking for healing, because they would find it in beautiful potions. Then suddenly a dragon's foot stepped next to him and the man started shouting for that the dragon had returned and therefore everyone had to flee. The dragon and Victor only talked about the fact that they wanted to sell things and several corpses. The young man right in front of them said that he would not do it. Then the smiling Victor asked why. The man also said that he did not think he could sell them at a good price. Then turning to the man, the dragon said about the fact that these shoes were expensive, because they are the most expensive shoes in the world. Holding the shoes in his hands, the man was surprised, saying that of course it was so. And Victor asked if the guy knew anyone who was interested in buying their loot, and the young man explained that they were twins of the goddess of trade. They could agree to deal with such as them. The temple also gets rid of corpses. Victor said that he could not believe that the guy did not buy their things. He felt like a leper. The dragon said that these people were too poor for them, but so he at least talked to their gods. The dragon spoke to the young man and hoped that they would wake up to common sense. They would start giving him a perk for each level, and then Victor said that about the perks he had one, allowing him to study the abilities of monsters if they teach him or if he survives their attack, and said that maybe he has something that he could use. Then, addressing Victor, the dragon said that if he defeated him, would the young man also start breathing fire, and asked if this was what his servant wanted. Addressing His Majesty, our hero explained that perhaps he was too hasty and asked to forget everything he had just said. The dragon, addressing the young man, said that he would do it only if the young man himself became a strong head of staff. He had to work hard for his personal benefit, the dragon explained, looking at our hero. Then the dragon wondered where the pink and blue were. Victor reported that he sent them to a local blacksmith. The young man thought that the scorchers were burning the countryside in search of something in Hodmer. So the young man said that he wanted to hunt, because the dragon asked about the scorchers. I will hear about the treasures that our hero was talking about. The young man said that he did not know this. Perhaps there is no strategic value, brand or more in scorchers, so on. The young man said. Then the dragon found it interesting. Turning to His Majesty, the young man asked if the dragon was really listening to him. The dragon said that he had figured out the Scorcher's plan and the head of staff was very smart, and that they would not let him down. The kobolds said someday they would also become the head of staff, and everyone started fighting for this title, because there should have been no disputes in the presence of the head of staff, one of them said, and that they remembered the protocol. After hearing about the protocol, our hero asked Vainker about it, and then he said that it was the protocol of the servants, and the head of the staff is in the highest echelon of the food chain of the servants. Only the Lord of Monsters himself is above him, 50% strength, and 50% cunning and 200% loyalty. At this moment, our hero was talking about the kobolds exaggerating, and the kobolds looking at him with sparkling eyes said that he underestimated their importance of the food chain. The kobolds began to explain to our hero that in the hierarchy of values, the young man was right below them and said that the young man was even higher than the princesses. Each member of the food chain could eat those who are below. Then the dragon said that if they starve to death, then they can sit servants as an emergency food supply, and kobolds, those who stood next to his majesty, said that it would be an honor for them to feed him. At this moment, our hero said that he should wait, so he considers him a potential meal. Turning to Vainker, Victor asked, and the dragon said that only if they have no food, no servants. This will never happen, because the world is full of dragon food. But just in case it was better for the young man to hire our hero, looking at the terrible look of the dragon, I thought that it was better for him to be safe. While they were walking with Vainker, Victor asked if the guys had finished quickly, and seeing Pink and Blue, they asked about how everything went. And the kobold, returning to our hero, said that the human blacksmith did not understand their language, so it was sad. Then they showed him a drawing with the image of his majesty, and he became very friendly. The kobolds reported that they gave the letter of our hero, and he gave him this. At this moment, the kobold handed the letter to our hero. Then the young man said that he would make them a magic ring for free that our hero ordered, and thanked the guys, saying that they did a good job. When they saw that the young man thanked them, they were insanely happy, because it was the boss who thanked them for their work. Vainker, having heard that a person would do it for free, said that this person was great and now he could live. And now turning to the servants, then the kobolds asked that he wanted to increase it. And turning to the kobolds, the dragon said that they should collect the corpses of his past victims. As always, he said it was impossible to neglect not a single coin. The dragon asked the acolyte if he understood everything correctly. Then people apparently worship the so-called gods, just as acolytes worship their Dacron lord. The young man replied that it was something like that. Dragons that worship no one even to ensure a good afterlife. The guy asked. I turned to the servant. The dragon says that such thoughts only happen to creatures that are fragile enough to die. The dragon reported that they honored the elder serpent, the mother of their race, but as a parent, not as a master. At that moment, a man appeared apologizing to Victor and asked if they would have a minute to discuss the prophet Orknub, and asked if Victor wanted salvation in the new world. Our hero said no, so he asked to fuck the man to be next to him. The man asked to wait, because she said that she felt his ice sky, whose level was average, and said that if he signed up for the esoteric order of the new world, he would be guaranteed to reincarnate on the mythical island of Japan, where all the girls are waifu. She told the young man. Victor said that he was called and asked to take his hands off him. Even North and South America were mixed up on the map. Here the dragon with the attendant said that the kobolds would protect his head of staff from this scum that was next to him. The next moment, two kobolds grabbed a man and that he was talking to Victor and said that he was an intruder, so he had to lie down on the ground. The man asked someone to help him with tears on eyes. Looking at all this, the dragon asked what it was, referring to the man Victor, and the young man said that it was a fraud for money. He lived on Earth. It is completely different from what this man described. At that moment, the dragon was saying, which means they have another body for sale. Victor, waving his arms, asked his majesty to wait and spare the man, because he was just a little more annoying. Victor explained. The young man thought to himself that the guy might be annoying, but he didn't deserve to die. Hearing this, the dragon said that getting rid of the annoying degree is only a pleasure, it's a duty. But the young man was a good servant, so he will give him a break, despite the fact that his generosity knows no bounds. The next moment they came to the cherished goal, and going into the building, Victor saw that the dragon was also trying to enter it, but he couldn't do anything, so turning to the servant, he asked him to tell the architects, and they had to build a bigger passage. Addressing his majesty, our hero said that of course he would do it, and asked if he could not avoid the collapse of this place on them pitiful mortals. The dragon howled, completely dissatisfied, asked why the man's appearance was so small. Turning to the dragon, our hero asked him to allow him to provide the gods of Outermond, and the dragon said that they were not so powerful since they had to share one lair. The young man said that it was natural. They were just a shadow of his majesty's splendor. Passing into the building, our hero said. Coming closer to the church, our hero showed the gods, saying that before the dragon was Mithras, the god of the sun, order, medicine, and justice. Together with Leon, the goddess of glory, nobility, strength, and art. Isengrim, god of hunting and animals. Cybele, the goddess of plants of knowledge and pleasure, was also here. Seng, the goddess of water, travel, dreams, and alcohol. And next to the moon man, the god of chaos and madness and the moon, because it was clear by his name. Not far from them stood Camilla, the goddess of plague, pests, darkness, and death. Desilgester, god of crime, air and illusions, goddess of war, tyranny, and machines. Looking further, Victor said that there was also Shesha, the goddess of trade, language, and snakes, and Sabler the destroyer, and finally, the bone god of random numbers. After looking at the bone, our hero began to get angry, and the dragon noticed it, asking if he did not like this god bone. The dragon turned to his servant, to which our hero said that this bone called him here, without even asking, and considering that he was the first to open the system. Everyone worships him, he almost as popular as Mitras. The dragon said that, of course, as if the dragons did not create this system first. And turning to our hero, at that moment they were talking. There was a god nearby, and the dragon, looking at him, said why this god was shabby. Was this god a poor man? Looking at the sculpture, which was slightly destroyed, it was a temptation that supported Ishphania, the rival country of the midshipmen. The locals pray against Sabler, our hero explained. The dragon, addressing the guy, asked how much they give for him. Could he track him down for a good reward? Addressed the guy. Victor said that he did not think that he was starting a fight with God. It was a good idea even for his majesty. To which the dragon asked why it was so, because he eats his wormy relatives every time they crawl the whole cave. The young man said that this worm is the 100th level, and he turned the southern continent into a desert. Besides, no one assigns a reward for the head of a deity. And looking at it all, the dragon thought it was sad. The next moment, the two who were standing nearby greeted the believers, asking if they had come to make an offering. When the dragon heard about the offering, he asked about it, and the young man explained that it was necessary to give money to the church as an offering to God as a sign of devotion. Turning to the servant Victor, the dragon was clearly dissatisfied, and then the young man said that his majesty could not be God, at least until he reached the cellular level. Approaching the attendants, the young man said that they had the corpses of bandits outside, asking if the Church of Mitras would accept them, and the girls said that they could burn the corpse for free so that they would not accidentally become undead, or the residents of Cybele could bury them in the forest so that they would return to nature. Hearing that they would do it for free, the dragon did not understand if they would not pay him for transportation services, and the girls asked why they would pay him for a public service. The dragon explained that they had incurred significant costs in the process, and their death. Victor turned to the dragon and said that there was absolutely no such word that his majesty used. Then the dragon began to argue with the young man, which of course there is, because he said it. The next moment, the girls interrupted them and said that they did not pay people to collect corpses. If the guys wanted to be paid instead of doing good deeds, they needed Shesha. So pointing his finger in the direction of the goddess, the dragon asked where it was, and there they saw Charlene again, who was praying right in front of the statue. And approaching Charlene, Victor asked what she was doing here, and she said that she prayed until his majesty almost brought down the temple. Victor was surprised when he saw that Charlene was praying to Shesha. He did not expect that the girl worships the goddess of trade, and she said that it was rather a business transaction. Unlike other gods, Lady Shesha trades miracles according to the rules of the market. The young man thought that at least they were honest, and then decided to ask how much it would cost to return to his home world, saying what is called Earth. The girl, who was not far from them, said that she had to be allowed to forgive her goddess. She would tell them the price. After seeing the cost, our hero thought that it was an armed robbery. But the girl said that the young man gets a 20% discount if he takes an annual subscription of a premium admirer, 30% if he becomes a priest. Then the dragon, addressing the girls, said that his servant had no intentions of leaving his current satisfying, because he fully trusted his work and addressing him. And of course they were here to sell their loot and 8 corpses of bandits. Hearing that there were only 8 of them, the dragon asked about it, and then the young man reported that the majesty ate the others. Then the girls reported that they could buy corpses for fertilizer. One of them would give 1 gold for each corpse. After hearing this, the dragon asked if she would really give them only 1 gold, to which the girl said that only 1 and that was it. But the dragon decided to bargain with her. Then the young man reported that his majesty had to lower the price. Vainker said that this was so only if someone lacked confidence, and he knew his own worth. And then turning to the girls, they said that the dragon Vainker was absolutely one who, a friend. Someone approached saying that he heard their arguments and apologized to everyone gathered. The creature that came to them said that the guys really wanted to sell fresh corpses, saying that Camilla's church would be happy to do a favor. But when Victor heard about Camilla, he said that it was one of the terrible 3. Varen, Camilla, and Disjester were a trio of evil adventurers before they ascended to divinity. Worship of them is not forbidden, because people are too afraid of them, as well as Sabar. Then the newcomer said that he was outraged by this evil label. Their goddess was simply misunderstood and he was not evil. It was not his fault that he looked evil. Victor, approaching the stranger, said, "Didn't Camilla send out a plague of red death that turned people into vampires?" And then the stranger said that it was only to prevent overpopulation. Vampires played a key role in the victorious end of the 100 Years' War. Addressing our hero also, the stranger asked if he had heard about the non-spiral revolution. After hearing this, everyone realized that a long story about this was about to begin. Charlene, too, approaching the stranger, said that she had heard that necromancers were buying up and turning them into brainless zombies, and then forcing them to work. And the stranger said that it was a promising young industry, although despised by the public. But the time will come and people will see the benefits of enslaving the dead. The stranger also asked him to imagine how zombies farm fields or fearless skeletons rescue orphans from a forest fire. After hearing this, the dragon asked if it was a zombie acolyte, then where he could get such a thing. Addressing his majesty, Victor asked again if he really wanted rotting corpses to serve him. Vainker told the man Victor that the acolyte carries a status symbol among dragons. They never escape. They are not tempted by treasures and they live almost as long as dragons. At this moment our hero thought to himself that he should have guessed this in advance. Judging by the status of the classes, Victor could become a necromancer himself and enter the market. Addressing the acolyte, the dragon was wondering if the young man could raise the dead. Our hero said that he met the criteria of the class, but he was not proud of it. The dragon was telling the acolyte that he did not have to have an opinion for his own good. At this moment, two girls who were servants of the church entered into conversation, saying that their goddess Shesha was not sure about the potential consequences of mass necromancy. But the stranger said that the work of the undead was absolutely safe. He asked not to listen to what these bourgeois say in attempts to undermine the inanimate industry. There is no evidence of the harmful effects of necromancy on the environment. At that moment, the dragon interrupted him, saying that how much the merchant wanted for the corpse, and he said that if they signed a binding contract allowing them to turn them into undead, they would offer 50 gold for the corpse. At that moment, the dragon immediately agreed. The stranger said that these corpses looked great and that it was a pleasure to deal with the dragon and Victor. Shang the hero realized that he had just sold the necromancer's corpses for posthumous labor. He felt very dirty. Looking at our hero, the dragon did not understand why. Because there is no greater pleasure in this world than watching his treasury increase. Also, the dragon, addressing the merchant, said that he should give his salary of 4 coins to the head of the staff. After hearing this, Victor said that he really wanted to give him only 4, because the contract was for 1/10 of the sales. It should be 40. The dragon said that the young man must have a bad math, because he said 1/10 after hearing this. Our hero did not understand at all what the dragon was talking about. Hearing that the young man was indignant, and the dragon thought that perhaps the young man wanted to get less money for his work. But after hearing what the dragon said, Victor thought that it was a complete order, and addressing his majesty, he said that he was too kind. Then the stranger thanked them for their support and modernization of the country, told them to sign with their blood at the bottom of the page, on a piece of paper that he held in his hands. By signing the paper, the young man received a personal perk, a friend of the dead. The undead will not attack them if they do not attack her first, and receive +5 to charisma when interacting with the undead or admirers. Here the dragon, addressing the servant, said that he had a new perk and asked if Victor also had one. The young man said that, unfortunately, he had never been so ashamed of the perk. Our hero began to walk away, and that friend of his was stopped by someone, saying that they could talk to Victor, because it was someone who wanted to ask him for a favor. Charlene was behind our hero, and when he saw the girl, the young man was ready to fulfill any of her requests. Then giving him the scroll, she said that someone had searched Henry's house and put this. On the scroll was written, Scorcher Francois Villemain, who offers to discuss the release of their mutual friend Henry and the golden offering with His Majesty King Weiner the Knighthood, in exchange for a pardon. And the young man understood that the letter indicated the coordinates of the place and the meeting. Charlene said that she thought that Shesha could help find Henry, but the price is too high even for the guild. Looking at Charlene, Victor said that she could not afford Shesha's service. Then why did she leave gold on the altar? And the girl said that it was a personal offering. Here Vainker said that if they want to buy his forgiveness, then who is he to judge them? Addressing His Majesty, Victor explained that it was a meeting place that was very far from the city, and that it was clearly a trap. The dragon didn't understand how they could hunt him and what they could do without dying, unless. The young man said that it really was so, they could plunder the city during His Majesty's absence, of course, assuming that they hadn't lied yet and hadn't killed Henry yet. Charlene said that it was very caring. Looking at Victor, she was sure that his family would be happy to hear it. The young man said that he did not mean it, it was just the worst case scenario that he had just described. Victor said that they would find Henry, free him from the Scorchers. I asked if this was the case, referring to Majesty Vainker. The dragon said that of course they would do it. In the end, turning to the servant, the dragon explained that this money would not earn itself. Turning to the chief, the kobold said that the blacksmith had sent them a gift that the chief had asked for. The next moment our hero looked at the kobolds that were running straight to him and saw that they were dragging this gift and told them to carry it straight to him. Just taking inventory of their magical items. They have a firebomb necklace that allows him to use the fireball spell a limited number of times, and also solar bracers that increase Victor's strength in the sun, and a ring of resistance to fire halves the damage received from fire, and a wyvern summoning horn. It's time to get your own mini dragon, our hero thought, and therefore, blowing into the rock, everyone expected what would happen next. Looking in front of him, Victor saw something similar to a dragon, and the kobold said that she was very beautiful. Saying that it was necessary to look at these scales, the young man thought that he could ride on the back of a dragon. At this moment, Vainker suddenly appeared. They say that Victor was a traitor because he left him for only 5 minutes, and he cheated on him with a wyvern, and this immediately after he appointed him responsible for their new minions. Addressing his majesty, the young man swore that he was just testing the horn. One of the kobolds, addressing his majesty and the chief, was asked to stop swearing at them. At that moment the dragon shouted that it was because the wyvern was allowed to climb on its back. Vainker asked, addressing Victor. At that moment, Victor was holding the wyvern in his arms. Vainker said that he knew that his kind had a shameful obsession with riding dragons, but he would never allow it. The only important thing is that Victor was a dirty, shameless hunter for the owners. This necklace is proof of that, and ours said that this thought crossed his mind and he was aware of everything. The next moment, the necklaces on which Vainker was showing were in Victor's hands, and he said that it was not a necklace, but a ring, and it was for him. After hearing this dragon could not believe our hero and asked him about it. Then the young man explained that it was a dragon-sized independence ring. After taking the ring on himself, Victor told him to just say the shimmer when he put it on and then become invisible. At this moment, the reddened dragon asked why the servant made him doubt him because he could eat him. Watching this scene, the kobolds thought that it was very beautiful. The next moment Victor was putting the ring right on the dragon's finger, and it looked like a scene of a declaration of love. For strengthening ties with his vassal, they earned 2 levels of the noble class. A noble duty temporarily receive +5 to all characteristics when protecting their vassals from bidding. At that moment, the dragon used a flicker and disappeared. Then he told the acolyte that he did not see himself, and Victor explained that the dragon had become invisible. It's one thing to imagine the world without him, the dragon said. It's another thing to see him. At that moment Cobalt was telling the boss that something was wrong, and looking ahead the young man thought that maybe it was evening fog, but said that it could not be in broad daylight, and maybe the young man thought about that it was a spell. The next moment, the young man realized that it was the Scorchers and that the city was attacked. Addressing the kobolds, the young man asked if the rangers were ready, and they said that it was so they had to strike. Addressing the chief. At this moment, Victor was running forward with the kobolds, and the dragon was supporting them from above, being invisible, telling his minions to go forward. Flying through the sky, the dragon thought about how difficult it would be to navigate without seeing his own body, and turning to the attendant, he asked how he could turn it off. The next moment the dragon was completely alone, and our hero did not see where he was going at all, because he was in a fog. Being in the fog, the young man asked the rangers where they were and whether they heard him shouting Victor all over the neighborhood, then thought that the fog probably absorbs the sounds. Nevertheless, the guild building can be seen from here. Watching from the side, our hero thought. The next moment, looking in front of him, he saw a stranger with all this smoke coming out of his mouth. The stranger greeted everyone, calling everyone friends, saying that his name was Francois. He was riding a horse, and next to him was his friend Gustave. Henry was also lying on his horse, and they informed all people that they had come in peace. When our hero saw them, he thought that it was bad. Francois said that if he opened the doors to let them plunder the guild, then no one would touch anyone. At this moment, Charlene and all the staff in the guild were watching closely for the opponents who came to their gates. Gustave asked his friend to move away, because he would break this door with his sword, to which he said that it was useless. He could just set fire to this place with a spell and fried everyone alive. Then Gustave told his friend that it was unfair, because he would get all the experience for it. Then he suddenly noticed that there was someone next to them, and it was the Lord of the Dragon, Victor, who was just trying to leave unnoticed. But apparently he failed, and the young man realized that it would not work to carry out a covert attack. He would never be able to deal with these guys alone, knowing that there was only one thing left for him, and that was that Victor could only stall for time. Addressing the guys, he said that it was a cool spell and asked if it was a disorienting fog. Then Francois said that it was really a familiar spell for the young man, but it was expected that the Night Blade knew about it. His Fallen Bishop class allows him to use powerful spells using the life points of his victim. Francois explained to our hero and pointed to the body lying next to him, to which Henry turned out to be. Francois explained that they hoped that Victor would leave the city in an attempt to save Henry, but the young man did not do this and called him a dishonest villain. Victor thought to himself that his opponent was not mistaken. He really was a villain, which means that he could understand when something did not add up in the action plan, and said that luring the heroes away from the city is the #1 gangster trick. But why bother with the siege of Hodmer at all? He asked. Francois said that if it was so interesting, Lord Brandon Moore of Ishvania asked them to get a magical pineapple hidden in the city, and even a dragon tamer like Victor would not be able to stop them from returning it. Thinking about it all that Francois said, Victor wondered why he had a tablet, and why he surrendered to him. But now it didn't matter to him. If they really think that he is the owner of Vainker, then it was necessary to confirm it. Taking out his horn, he said that if they gave up now, and then he would not use this dragon submission horn that was right in Victor's hands, and he said that then he would not summon Vainker. But his deception failed, because Francois, pointing his finger at our hero, said that he had a perk, eyes on a treasure. This object could not repair a true dragon. Gustav, tired of the chatter, began to run at our hero, saying that it was necessary to stop. They would kill him and end this misunderstanding. But the young man took his horn and said that it was worse for them, because he called Weiner. At that moment, a dragon appeared that was behind our hero. Everyone saw him and rushed to scatter. But Francois shouted that it was not a dragon, and that it was a trick. The wyvern attacked Gustav, and when Gustav saw it, he didn't understand if it was another pet. The next moment our hero jumped up from his seat and started attacking Francois, who was sitting on his horse clashing with balls, and Francois was talking about what it meant they had to fight to the death. The next moment, he used his skill enhancement perk to attack our hero, and he fell right next to his horse, but managed to jump back in time and thought that he had no chance of defeating these two in battle. Victor understood that these two opponents were 2 times higher than his level, but for the sake of the people still locked in the guild building, for the sake of Charlene, our hero understood that he had to try to deal with them. Francois, approaching our hero, asked if Victor really just wanted to detain them until the arrival of his dragon. But he also said that the young man would not live to see this moment, because it was never possible to come to battle with a knife. Pointing a gun at our hero, his opponent Francois said. When our hero saw the silicon pistol, he thought that it was a scam, and Francois said that it was possible. But when the young man dies, he can just lie to them and say that he defeated him in a fair fight. At that moment he pulled the trigger, and our hero shouted to Charlene to duck so that everyone who was watching him jumped. At that moment Victor jumped away from the bullet that was flying straight at him. Charlene ducked, because the glass near which she was standing and watching our hero broke, and there were children next to her, and therefore, grabbing them, she ducked and froze, waiting for what would happen next. At that moment, Francois was ready to admit that Victor was brave and attacked Victor with his weapon, saying that his level was 2 times higher than Victor's. Victor said that it was true, but apparently most of his levels in the ranged combat class were spoken by a guy, and attacking his opponent said that in close combat Francois was not so good. Francois' sword flew out, and he was standing next to our hero dropping his pistol. The next moment he fell dead. Victor thought that as Francois said, he would lie and say that he had defeated him in a fair fight. At that moment Gustav was fighting with a wyvern, saying that Francois was a fool, and that he had had enough of it. The next moment, using revenge, Gustav decided to deal with the wyvern, and looking at this, the young man thought that his affairs were bad. Gustav told him that he would prove that the young man was nobody without a dragon. Victor understood that it looked like it was bad, but fortunately he still had a trump card in the form of a firebomb necklace, and therefore using it against Gustav. The young man thought he could deal with him, but it was all useless. Gustav told Francois to use a spell to end it, and he would cover him. At that moment, our hero realized that the person he had dealt with earlier had not died, and, getting up, Francois said that he would just shoot. Here a friend, addressing the chief, said that they had come and had to avenge his highness. The kobolds that came to the aid of our hero rushed to attack his opponent. The next moment they felt something and asked each other if they felt it. The next moment, one of them became a squire of the monster, making a sudden attack on a stronger enemy. Everyone earned the bandit level, and I turned to the guys. Our hero said that they had succeeded. At this moment, Gustave, addressing our hero and asking how much he had, saying about Francois that he was a weakling. At this moment, the kobolds who saw their opponent and turned to the chief, but tried to hold on and said that it was necessary to keep the formation. The next moment, Gustave started attacking the kobolds and using revenge after defeating them all. He thought that he had won like rats. Looking at the defeated yellow and blue, the other kobolds understood that it simply could not be. The next moment, trying to fight, they said that he would pay for it, turning to the biped, but he only scattered them, telling them to get out of the way. Looking at all this, Victor could not believe that his friends were all defeated. Getting up, the kobolds could not understand what had happened and thinking that it could not end like this. At that moment, Gustave was standing over Francois, and we asked if he could walk. He was holding a knife in his chest, saying that he had spent all his special points on a spell, and that he would need help. Raising his sword over him, Gustave said that he was sorry more experience was for him. In the next moment, he dealt with his partner. Looking around, Victor thought about what it was already like. The sound he heard was like his heartbeat. And Gustave, approaching our hero, turned to the owner of the dragon, saying that it was time for us to die and carried a sword over him. Looking at him from the bottom up, our hero thought that maybe it was the end. Was he really going to die like that? Here again, suddenly something happened and Victor sat in shock and looked straight ahead. Gustave was defeated, and our hero was shocked, and then suddenly he heard a dragon asking a servant, because he couldn't find him. The next moment he said he didn't see where he was going and how he had to turn it off. Addressing his majesty, Victor said that he needed to pronounce the words of flickering. After hearing about this word, the dragon pronounced it. The next moment he reappeared in front of our hero saying that it was much better this way, and then, addressing the servant, he said that he was ready to tear these bandits to pieces. Looking ahead of himself, Victor thought that he had trampled them all and did not even notice, because the dragon was standing on his opponents, whom he had previously intended to defeat. Thinking about Vainker, the young man thought that at least the dragon saved the city and himself, but he could not save everyone, our hero thought, looking at the yellow one, who was lying on the ground and did not move. At that moment, the rest of the kobolds surrounded him and turning to Yellow, they said that he was the best servant of them, and Pink said that she had to die instead of him. Red said that they had to sell their corpses, they would like it, so they would forever become part of His Majesty's treasury. At this moment, our hero looked sadly at his subordinates. Then the system showed that the young man earned 7 levels of the monster's squire, the life force of the red dragon monster. His type changes to humanoid or dragon. He acquires immunity to exhaustion, paralysis, fatigue, instant death, illness, resistance to fire and aging, and vulnerability to frost, fairies, and dragon slayers. Also, the young man received a monster rider. He had an average skill of riding monsters. He does not receive penalties during a battle on horseback and can use the dexterity parameters of his steed to pass checks if its value exceeds the values of the hero. Understanding monsters, the young man could also observe the monster, and when he watches it, he could get an idea of its strengths and weaknesses. After reading all this, the young man thought that 7 levels at a time. Although he was not in a completely different league, the young man thought. Charlene, bursting into the building, asked if Victor was okay. At that moment, Vainker was thinking about where those sweet people were, asking them to come out because he didn't bite. He burned. At this moment, the young man was sitting next to the thoughtful Weiner and said that he was alive, sort of, addressing Charlene. Running up to Victor, the girl was carrying a potion saying that he should take it and drink it. It was a healing potion. Drinking the potion, the young man looked at Charlene, and she said that it was stupid but incredibly brave. He said that he could not leave her, and then Charlene thanked our hero. The young man, addressing Charlene, said that he had long wanted to ask her something, and blushing, she asked Victor what our hero wanted. Then taking her hands, he asked if Charlene wanted to do reproduction. Vainker said that it took a whole night, but like the end crushed all these bandits people. Then the system reported that she congratulated him for crushing the Scorchers and earned 4 levels of Gladiator. He was also a crowd favorite during the battle. He received an improvement in random stats, impressing the crowd. In addition, he has a small chance to get items if he has earned the universal approval of the crowd. Vainker, looking at this, thought about the chance to get an item if he impressed his fans, more treasures in his treasury. He told her. It also has a super hit that doubles the chance of dealing a critical hit with their physical attacks. At this moment, the dragon thought about what a critical strike was. The name of the Dragon King was stopped, saying that it was true. Hodmir was occupied by the Great Red Dragon, said a girl sitting on a horse who asked our hero to stop earlier, and Vainker said that it was true. He really was a great Vainker, a knighthood, called the first great calamity of this era and the king of the Alabai Mountains. Then the girl who was sitting on a horse who was a knight, hearing what the dragon was saying, said that the king of the mountains did not exist. She is the Duchess Elinor of Euskal, the king's second cousin, and before the dragon could finish, he said that she was not a princess. When she heard this, she asked the dragon again, asking what he meant. Vainker said that she was not a princess, and therefore unworthy of his time. When she heard this, the girl said that she was of royal blood. But calling the cow dragon servant, he said to come here, because his food was arguing with him. Speaking about Vainker, the Knights of Murder, and addressing him, the girl said that he was wanted for the unjustified destruction of 2 cities. At that moment she was holding his portrait in her hands, where a reward was set for him, and said that the reward for his head was 120,000 gold. Upon hearing this, the dragon said that he ordered the girl to annul it, and upon hearing this, she said that he really denies the accusations made against him. The dragon said that it was not so, but he was worth at least 1 million and he was still incredibly modest, he explained. The next moment he was telling her to tell her king of mammals to fix his cost. Turning to Vainker, she spoke like a vile creature. The girl said that he really dared to insult their god-chosen King Gardamein and that he had to apologize right now. Then, spreading his wings, the dragon asked if they wanted him to apologize, because they should have asked him for forgiveness, and their weakness in his presence was an insult in itself. He was a dragon of their pathetic gods and answered to him, Vainker said, and that they were paying him for killing him and their kind. Looking at all the people from above, a friend, he said that he had protected this city from hostile people, and they would reward him for it, saying that he had given them a favor. Upon hearing this, the knight said that it was enough with her, turning to her knights to tell them to kill this dragon. The next moment everyone went to the dragon, but it was useless, because he dealt with all his opponents in an instant. Having dealt with the knights of her wards, he looked at the necklace that had fallen from her neck and said that he had finally received a reward. At that moment, a system appeared in front of him saying that the dragon was a crowd favorite, and that it was activated for intimidating arrogant food. He received a personal perk. The mockery gave him a degrading mockery, saying that it could impose the status of a berserker on targets. And now Vainker was asking who he needed to poke. In the next one, looking at him, people began to run around. At this time, in another place, Victor was lying in bed with Charlene and could not believe it, because he would never have thought that she would at least agree to go on a date with him, and even more so this. In the next moment, turning to Charlene, he apologized to her for being so straightforward about it, and the girl said that to be honest she liked people who immediately get to the point. The system reported that the young man received a personal romantic perk. He received +5 to charisma when interacting with the opposite sex. At this moment Charlene only asked to wait. I asked that that's why the price was so low, but the young man asked what she meant. The girl explained to him that in the temple she paid the goddess Shesha for improving her personal life, but the price surprised her. Victor, hearing this, asked what she wanted to say, and the girl said that it was not so important to her. Then the young man asked Charlene how much it all cost, shocked by what she had just told him. Charlene hesitated for a long time, but then replied that it cost all 50 coins, which killed our hero. After hearing about 50 coins, he could not believe that he cost so much, and the girl said that it was not her fault that the young man was so accessible. Turning to Victor, but our hero said that Charlene also agreed to it. The next moment, Charlene asked what they would do next, and the young man said, since their task was over, Vainker would most likely drag him back to his mountain. Charlene said that she didn't know, she was supposed to stay in the city, and asked if they would be in touch. Leaving, our hero thought that his personal life was crying. Then suddenly Charlene called Victor. When he was already leaving the door, she looked after him and wished him good luck. Then he said that he also wished Charlene good luck. The next moment he walked out the door. Coming out of the door, he was greeted and asked if he had finished breeding. The new generation could cope with the shortage of minions, the kobolds said. Hearing this, the young man asked if they were serious now, thinking about the rangers who were right in front of him. Going out to his wards, he hid that he thought it was still too early to talk about what they were asking him. Then turning to a stranger, he asked if he was on business, and then he said that his servants had notified him that the young man was going to recycle half of their team. Victor, addressing a stranger, said that there was a way to bring back to life those who died, to really bring them back to life, and not make them undead. Then Jules said that True Sunday was beyond his capabilities, as well as any one of his acquaintances, and said that Victor was not below 20 after all. Of course, up to this threshold, new classes open easily, Jules explained. Victor explained to him that yesterday he received level 17. Hearing this, he said that then the young man could become a necromancer and raise them as intelligent undead. Turning to Jules, the young man asked if he could do it himself, and Jules explained that for political reasons he raised only unreasonable, and could put him as a mentor to get the level of the necromancer explained that. Cobalt told the chief that he shouldn't have done this, because they gladly gave their lives for him and his majesty. But Victor said that Yellow saved his life, so he had to do something for him. Also, the young man did not forget about the blue one, who was also able to help him win the next moment. They both lay on the pentagram right in front of him, and the young man asked if he was doing everything right. Jules, who helped him, begged the young man to use limitless power. At that moment the bodies of the two began to glow, and the system showed our hero that he had received the level of a necromancer. He could revive the dead with a touch, revive corpses in the form of undead, sacrificing money or objects. He could revive an animated being as an intelligent undead, while initially preserving the soul and the class levels. The means necessary to achieve for revival depend on the values of the soul. Looking at blue and yellow in front of him, Victor asked if they were okay at that moment. Both of them asked for brains, and our hero thought that maybe the perk didn't work on them, since they were unreasonable. The kobolds, the next moment smiling yellow and blue, told them that they were laughing at the boss, because they were all the same good old friends that our hero knew, only now they could see their collarbone. One of them said that he had such a cool voice, imitating the voice of a zombie. Seeing blue and yellow, the rest of the kobolds agreed that their friends had finally returned and they were all happy. And Victor, looking at them, thought that he was very glad that everything had turned out that way and maybe it wasn't that bad. At that moment someone flew out of the window right in front of them. Looking at the body that was lying right in front of them, everyone shouted to the attendant, and Jules, looking at it, thought that it was another corpse. This cooperation was getting better and better for him. Our hero, standing not far from them and thinking that everything was fine before, covered his face with two hands. From that what he just saw, the sign said that you had to be careful. There were dragons here. If they go there, they simply won't have a chance, and that they really don't have them. The sign said that people had to leave and not go any further. Here someone was saying that they shouldn't have left. Didn't they see signs saying that not everyone would die if they got any closer? At that moment, Vainker was sleeping peacefully, listening to how everyone was talking nearby. Then someone asked if it was a dragon's lair, and a voice answered him that it was so, and that they really didn't have the slightest chance. Here the dragon, clutching his head, told the rangers that he would be grabbed from him and they could shoot at opponents. The kobolds agreed with their boss. Addressing the servants, the dragon asked what was going on, and Victor said that the dragon fighters had come to them. Addressing his majesty, looking at the mountain, Vainker thought that these people had really come again, and this time they took even more people with them. Seeing this, the dragon thought that it was very nice, and he really liked it. People started using lightning bolts, and the dragon was thinking that one would think that they had learned a lesson after they had dealt with the previous groups. Victor, addressing his majesty, said that a large reward had been appointed for his head, and the location of the lair was now known to everyone. Taking a lot of air into his chest, Vainker began to spew flames directly at his opponents, and they all shouted that it was necessary to run away and escape from the evil dragon as soon as possible. Then looking ahead of himself where people were defeated, the dragon thought that the problem had now been solved. At this moment he finally got a new level, a nobleman, just one short of a wonderful scholarship. Turning to Victor, he said that his majesty could not go on like this. They keep coming and their warnings do not work, the guy explained. Then, turning to the dragon, they said that they could not rehearse calmly. Their motto was spoken by the rangers, and it still seemed that they needed to add rock somewhere. Then the dragon told the servants that he was as annoyed as they were, but what could he do? He could not stop the flow of people coming here for help and suicide. Victor said that although he came to the conclusion that killing people was a natural selection, he thought that they should have moved. After hearing this, the dragon could not believe what Victor was saying. Wasn't he glad to have a roof head and the best view on the whole continent? Victor explained to the dragon that it was cold here and he was tired of eating mountain goats all day. Besides, at this rate this cave would not be enough to store all his treasures. Addressing his majesty, after hearing what the young man said, the dragon said that there was a meaning in the words of the young man. Yet he had even more treasures, or their guilds would not suddenly be empty. Addressing his majesty, our hero explained to him that he had eaten their last employer, to which he said that the man refused to pay him, and the young man said that it was so. But she was the king's cousin, and now for some time they could not see the task. But for the sake of the treasure they could always clean up the dungeon and use it as a new lair. Most of the dungeons in the city have already been protected by adventurers, except for those near the Ishphania border. Sitting in the dungeon, the dragon asked which of these dungeons was big enough for his ever-growing treasury, and our hero thought, and the kobolds standing right behind him looked at our hero waiting for his answer. Our hero thought about the underwater city, saying that there were mermaids there. Then the dragon asked if there was anything where it was warm and on land, because there was too much water in this city, and the young man asked, then what about the desert? There was a pleasant dry desert, and the rangers said they didn't know this place. There seems to be shooting needles at everyone. One of the kobolds, who was standing next to his friend, said that because of such moments he was glad to be an unfeeling undead, and the dragon, standing nearby, said that the young man could list further. Then Victor asked what was about the castle on the volcano. Hearing this, dragon said that he listened, and I asked about how much lava we are talking about. Victor replied that he did not know this, but he heard that this Murmurin castle had a frightening reputation and showed a mark on the map, saying that it used to be a fortress, but now it is the lair of a powerful lich. The demon king Brandon Moore sent his general to capture the castle during the 100 Years' War, and the Inquisition did everything possible to repel the general's attack. But at that moment the dragon said that the young man could only say 20 words. Addressing the dragon, Victor asked what he meant by talking about 20 words, and the dragon informed Victor that he stopped listening to the young man after 20 uninteresting words. Gold, treasures, and money do not count. Hearing this, the young lich captured the castle, and that it was bad, killing him was good, a big reward. Hearing about the reward, the dragon immediately became interested. The Inquisition kept its wealth in storage under the castle garden. Mir also offers land in the vicinity of the castle, but they have long been abandoned. And then Kobold told our hero that this was not quite true, referring to the chief, because many settlements of kobolds are located near the castle, including them. He explained. Then the kobolds started talking to each other, and our hero just looked at them. One of the kobolds said that the labor market of the servants was crowded. Then the other said that there was also a village. Victor asked if there was a village there, how it managed to survive, and Kobold said that it was the mojo of a bad moon. They ate all the adventurers in the area for miles ahead. The dragon said that there were no more potential thieves and that they convinced him. Turning to the servants, the dragon warned them to pack their things. The castles were now new caves, and everyone and the happy ones went to the exit. And our hero, addressing his majesty, said that the lich had killed all the adventurers who tried to get to him. Upon hearing this, the dragon said that the lich was such a kind of undead, and the young man explained that it was the strongest undead. Spellcasters who turned to dark magic to prolong their lives. And just like Gustav and Francois, Furibon serves Brandon Moore, the demon king of Ishvania. When the dragon heard this, he said that it made absolutely no difference to him. He would deal with him with his finger, like with the rest of his pathetic family. He said, referring to Victor, and now it was necessary to move his treasury to a new castle. Looking at his gold, Vainker said, and turning to Victor, he talked about that how could they move all this gold that was lying right in front of them. The next moment, Vainker, addressing our hero, told him to find the bag. After hearing about the bag, the young man asked if Vainker had talked about a bag for the entire treasury. The dragon asked our hero to find a very large bag, unless he had better ideas, addressing the servant, because gold does not fly. Then our hero, looking at the kobold standing nearby, said that gold could actually fly, because it seems he saw something in the tablet and called the pineapple of wisdom. Then looking into it, the kobold stood up from behind, and the dragon also looked at what our hero would do. They said that it was not like either one vegetable they've ever seen. Holding a pineapple in his hand, that is, a tablet, our hero said that it was rather an archive, and looking in front of him thought that he knew it, because he found drawings of flying machines in files to which he has access. He was almost sure that they were needed by Scorcher. Addressing the dragon, the young man said that they did not have the technology to build a real airship, but if they worked together, everything would work out. After hearing about the fact that it was necessary to work, the dragon said that he had servants for this and that it was their task to control, and he knew where they could find a workforce. An hour later, the city of Valbin. Our heroes came to the city, and looking at the dragons, everyone said that he had returned. Then Vainker asked the peasants how they were doing, to which they looked at the dragon and said that they had asked him, just not again. These people at this moment, the dragon shouted that they had a job for people, paid for by his sincere gratitude. Victor, who was standing next to him, said that he was very sorry for these people. The people who were standing nearby were trying to make the biggest bag they could make, stitching it from many other packages, and the kobolds at that moment were making sure that everyone had time to work successfully. The next moment, one turned to the other and said that the kobolds said that they would leave this region forever when everyone was ready. Was it true? And said that just thinking about it only gives strength. A few hours later, our hero asked, now they could see if this thing would fly. and the dragon said that it had to fly. The next moment he inflated and thought that they had done it. There was a big ship with sails in front of all the people, on which there was a pile of gold. Looking at this, everyone thought that they had done it, and Kobold, going up to the deck, said that they were so high that he almost could not see the ground, and Victor said that he had to admit that the view was impressive. Turning to the servants, the dragon said that they should keep heading for Murmurin and obeying him. Everyone went forward to his new castle, and the people whom our heroes left and rejoiced that they were promised that the dragon would not return to their village anymore. The environs of Murmurin, the border of Ishphania and Gardamein. Taking off through the air, the dragon thought that he thought it was strange. I remember he flew over this region 2 centuries ago. It looked much greener. At that moment, our heroes were flying high in the sky, and the young man, addressing everyone, said that to tell the truth, he was surprised that they managed to get to this place safely. Cobalt, who was standing next to him, said that only their head of staff could master the true power of pineapple wisdom, and it worked from one time. The one who was at the helm answered. Victor said that they really wanted to say from the first time. After 8 broken prototypes, our hero explained. Most likely it would have been more if not for his new intelligence glasses, remembering how they tried to build this ship on which they were flying now. Arriving from above, they saw a volcano below and asked if it was a dungeon. Turning to the man Victor, he said that it was Murmuin Castle. At that moment someone from below was looking at how our heroes were trying to get down to the castle, and getting to the mouth of the volcano in which the castle stood. Our heroes were waiting for obstacles. Weiner, addressing his servants, said that this castle was perfect. It had lava and towers. The dragon said, thanks to the village nearby they had supplies for this winter, he explained, and that it was an ideal place for a treasury. Victor said that this was indeed the case, but he also said that the lick owner of this castle was still inside and he should have noticed them. The dragon corrected our hero, saying that it was already a former owner, turning to his servant. Then Vainker decided to clarify with our hero the name of the one whose castle this was, and the young man said that his name was Furibon. The dragon, addressing the servants, said to notify this Furibon of his presence. Taking a deep breath, the young man shouted louder to Furibon, saying that His Majesty Vainker the Knighthood, the king of the Altai Mountains, the greatest adventurer of all time, wants to speak. At this moment, the dragon was telling the servant not to forget about the great disaster of this era. He worked hard for this. Hearing that the dragon was correcting again, our hero was dissatisfied with this. Then looking down, Victor thought about what their opponents seemed to have heard coming out of the pentagram that appeared in the air. The Lick was asking what kind of a farce was here. It was a villain and a Furibon, whose level was 58, so our hero looking at him thought it was impossible that a villain would be level 58, because there were insanely many. Addressing his opponents, the Lick said that he believed that it was King Vainker the Knighthood in front of him, and Victor Dalton, to which they replied that did the enemy know their names and was he really waiting for them. The dragon said that it was so he was the king and wanted to get the crown of the Lick. Lick said that of course he was waiting for them. Before them was Furibon the Archmage of Ishphania. His owner Brandon Moore warned him that the guys destroyed his agents in the lobby and stole the pineapple of wisdom, and now they will return the device to its rightful owner, he explained, looking at our heroes. The Lick also said that maybe the guys would rot at his dungeon, because he would have preferred them to choose option 2. He came up with so many new deadly traps for the castle, but no adventurers dared to come. After hearing what he was saying, our hero did not understand. Was he really coming up with deadly traps? Probably everyone has their own hobby, the young man thought. The Lick, addressing the guys, begged them, saying that he was a sarcastic mortal, and addressing Victor and that it was very original. The next moment he used a black curse against him, attacking our hero. Seeing this, the kobolds pleaded and stretched out their hands to their boss, and he was standing and holding on to the railing. He said that it was a good spell when addressing a bully. The Lick, looking at his opponent, did not understand how the young man could still stand on what our hero said, that thanks to his class, he had just learned his opponent's perk. The system reported that the young man had studied the monster's perk, the Black Curse and the Black Curse. The curse effect is 80 ko, a spell for one target, removes all buffs, reduces all characteristics by 1 step -5, and prevents the restoration of Oz until the curse has subsided. Using the Black Curse against him, our hero attacked his opponent. When he saw that the squire of the monster was trying to fight the Lick with his own perk, he said that it was very nice. The next moment, the dragon was telling him to stop laughing at his minions, and attacking his head of staff means not respecting him. The dragon said, addressing the Lick. Seeing the dragon, the Lick asked if Vainker really wanted to fight with him, because he would take the pineapple and everything else. The next moment the dragon attacked his opponent. attacking his opponent with one blow. He defeated him and earned a level in the gladiator class. At that moment the kobolds shouted that their king was the best, saying that Vainker was the best dragon. Then Vainker, turning to our hero on the ship, asked where the treasures were, because he had treasures to drop out. He explained to Victor, and Victor said that everything was because this opponent of his did not die, addressing his majesty and saying that this Furibun Lychee, his soul is in an object that allows him to be reborn. Vainker, listening to all this, said that of course the opponent had died. The Lick was dead even before he killed him. The next moment the Lick rebelled and told the lizard that how dare she touch him, because he would make a rug out of his skin. Then the dragon, seeing that the Lick again, began to ask how dare he survive after his poke. Now he will have to use the whole paw, he said. The Lick, attacking our hero, said that he could not wait for the moment when he could make his bag out of the dragon. And Vainker said that this could not happen because the dragon had no vulnerabilities. He used a crimson shield and looked at the dragon right in front of him because he heard a friend say that he had no vulnerabilities. But what about his treasure? Addressing Vainker, the Lick said. At that moment, Vainker was telling her opponent not to dare to touch his treasures, addressing the vile undead. But the undead said that he had a much better plan in mind, because he could turn gold into lead. The next moment, the ship that the Lick drew attention to, along with the gold, began to crumble and copper fell into our heroes for the place of gold. Kobold, looking at the boss and telling King Vainker, asking how he was. Our hero also asked how his majesty was. At that moment the dragon was trying to pick up what was gold even earlier, and the Lick flying near him said that he had lived for centuries and had never seen a dragon make such a face. Victor understood that it would all end very badly and told everyone that they had to run. Addressing the Rangers, Victor told them to turn the airship in the other direction. They had to leave now, and that they had to fly away while they were alive. Leech, addressing the War King Vainker, said that now that he had taken away from him what he most valued, why shouldn't they make a deal? The Lick told the king to take the pineapple, and he would return his gold to him. The next moment the dragon attacked the Lick without listening to him. Using the Berserk effect status, an explosion occurred, and our heroes flew away from this battle. At the next moment, the Lick hung on the dragon's paw and thought that if you think about it, maybe it was his mistake. The next moment, Vainker began to attack his opponent, spewing fire from his mouth and dissolving in his flame. Turning to Furibun, our heroes heard this and watched from their ship flying away. Victor, despite what happened, said that the guys would never pronounce the word with the letter C in the presence of Weiner. At this moment, they were all watching from afar what was happening in the mouth of the volcano in which they had recently been. Turning to Furibun, our hero thought that this had already been going on for 2 hours and laughed that Vainker would not stop anytime soon. The next moment, after dropping anchor, they decided to land somewhere near the volcano in which Vainker was rampaging. Turning to the boss, the kobold asked what he thought with his majesty, whether everything would be alright. And Victor said that he would probably calm down. When he calmed down, they would provide him with their full emotional support. They would never remind him of this incident again, he said. The kobold nodded his head at our hero and said that they had agreed with him. At that moment, the young man looked at the mountains and tried to understand what they could do with it. Then, turning to the chief, one of the kobolds said that he didn't know, maybe an alchemist could return this gold to its normal state, that perhaps someone in their old settlement could help. Victor, who walked by and said that they forgot that the kobolds mentioned that their family lived nearby, and said that they should ask them if they knew anyone or any alchemists. He would inspect the village for now, and the pink one answered that they could not leave him majesty, addressing the boss, because he needed them most now. Pointing to the volcano where Vainker was rampaging, our hero asked and told the kobolds that they could trust him, that returning his treasure was the best plan of action for them now. They had to go to the settlements for help. This was their mission, Victor told the kobolds. Turning to the boss, the kobolds asked if the young man planned to replace them, that if they found someone more competent than themselves, would there be any meaning left in their lives? They asked our hero, sitting down closer to the kobold and trying to reassure them. Our hero said that no one does not replace. Then he thought that if he thought about it that way, he should start recruiting new recruits just in case Vainker went hungry. At that moment, a brilliant idea came to his mind. Victor, addressing the kobolds, said that he was promoting their ranks from trainee to lieutenant servants, to the elite among the elite. Upon hearing this, they were incredibly glad that they had been promoted. Addressing the kobolds, the young man asked them to go hire new trainees and choose only the best. This requires the honor of their team. Turning to the boss with tears in their eyes, they were ready to do anything. And the young man, looking at how the kobolds left, thought about that they were charming, and Vainker was like that too sometimes. Sometimes everything around turned into chaos, but he thought that he could get used to such a life. Approaching the village of Murmurin, the young man thought about why there were so many sheep in this village, because they were everywhere in the trees, on the roads, and even on the roofs. And the young man thought that he had a bad feeling about this place, trying to remember what was the name of this place. Bad Moon Moji, it sounded like that. While he was walking past the houses, suddenly in one of them he saw a light, and as he passed by, the door suddenly opened. Our hero looked in fear at the people greeting him. The man who came out of the door greeted the traveler, and the girl looked out from behind him. It was also interesting to watch our hero. The man pretended that his name was Kwasun, and that this was his sister Chocolatine. The girl was very happy and said that the young man was here to hunt the dragon because he was threatening their livestock. Turning to strangers, the young man asked if they were vampires by chance. Kwasun said that of course not, because they have no taste, and besides, the sun is shining now. Why were these accusations? Asking the stranger. At that moment his sister was hiding behind a man, and Victor, looking at them, said that he had there is the inside of a monster. Using this skill, the young man looked at their new acquaintances in front of him. Was Kwasun de Jevoden werewolf humanoid, beast, resistant to the moon, beast, madness and fairies, vulnerable to silver, killer of people and killer of beasts, quite rude especially if you mention Jevoden. If talk about Jevoden, almost as distantly as if someone were dating his sister. Chocolatine de Jevoden, werewolf, humanoid, beast, resistant to the moon, beast, madness and fairies, vulnerable to silver, man killer and beast killer. The priestess of the beast god Isengrim. She looks sweet and innocent, but this is not at all the case. Ponders how I will cook someone in the form of stew or with pepper sauce. Seeing his new acquaintances, our hero jumped back because he realized that there were two werewolves in front of him, and then the Kwasun, seeing this, suddenly thought that the guy was really one of them. Because he looked familiar, the girl used super magic scanning and said that everything was fine, turning to his brother, because the young man was also a dragon-type humanoid monster. Kwasun said that he thought that the young man was a homeless traveler whom no one would look for, and they almost made a terrible mistake when addressing the girl. He said, helping our hero get up. Victor asked if these two were going to kill him. He said that they weren't going to, but some villagers wanted to make sacrifices to the moon man. Kwasun explained that people believed that the dragon was rampaging. This was a punishment for being late with the previous victim. And the next moment Kwasun said that they could stop disguising themselves. The young man was also a monster. And then the creatures appeared in front of our hero and said that they had lost their dinner and greeted him. Frightened, the young man simply looked at the creatures that stood right in front of him. Then suddenly a giant approached the newcomer, and thought whether the newcomer in front of him was a farmer, because he needed helpers in the fields. He told his girlfriend that she was sitting next to him, and the girl, she said that she didn't think so, but she still had to greet this newcomer. The houses were also alive, and looking at the children they asked if there were children in front of them. Then looking at these houses, the young man thought about what it was, because it was a village of monsters, and the houses were also alive. That friend, he saw an acquaintance in the crowd and thought that it was Savoria's and asked if it was her, seeing our hero smiling at Victor and saying that they had not seen each other for a long time. She could not believe that there was a young man in front of her. Seeing his friend, Victor said that she still had the mark of the Thieves Guild, and pointing to her eye, Save said that it was a pity that the young man left them and that he was an excellent redistributor. Victor asked to believe him that his last theft had not gone very well and asked what his friend was doing here. The masters of the Night Market Guild sent him to open a warehouse here. So was the young man disguised as a dragon monster all this time. Here Chocolatine talked about how she doesn't disguise herself to deceive wandering adventurers so that they don't kill them. And they kill them first while they sleep. They also have a Mimiko school so that they can learn to blend in with the terrain. Turning to Victor at that moment, Kwasun asked since he was of the dragon type. Then he had to be connected with the dragon that was rampaging in the crater of the volcano. Victor explained that they had arrived to capture the castle of the new owner. He had staged a prank and his owner did not appreciate it. Then Kwasun understood that during his life Furubin was a cave troll and after death his character did not improve. He does not touch them and the villagers do not like him either, are in the way, explained the Kwasun to Victor. The Kwasun also said that when the Lick is very angry, they kill adventurers before he does it, and thought that he was bored and lonely in the castle. At that moment our hero imagined what was happening in this castle while the Lick was alive. Everyone approached Victor and said that he had heard rumors that the young man fed the Duchess to the dragon. Hearing this, Chocolatine asked if the young man really did it, but being a little embarrassed and not understanding what his friend was talking about, he said that it was not him and that the dragon himself ate this girl. The next moment Kwasun invited the young man to stay with them and asked whether the hero will last. Victor said that he didn't know. But as long as the dragon was here, he also stayed here. Then he said that the young man could arrange an excursion. Because they were new here too. They used to live in the forests of Jevoden, but in the city it was a good time, better hunting year that they ever had. The time was good, they had plenty of food, although they shared with the local trolls. Then, having heard about the forest of Jevoden, our hero suddenly remembered what happened to this forest. This was before it was burned to the ground by some man along with his pet dragon, and Kwasun told her that if they find them, the young men will not say hello. At that moment the girl realized that Victor was that same person. Victor tried to sneak away unnoticed, but nothing worked for him. A friend of the girl and Kwasun said that the young man could not be avoided and that he had to run right after him and grab the guy. Victor tried to run away faster, shouting to Vainker to help him. A few hours later, in a volcano crater, the dragon was trying to catch his breath after inventing flames for hours on end. Having caught his breath, he told the Lick to go out and die again by his hand and treat him as a coward. But he said that he would never do this, because he set fire to his castle. Well then Vainker told the Lick that he poisoned his treasure. So they started arguing. The Lick said that the dragon poked him in the face, addressing him as an ignorant lizard, and as Vainker flew away, he swore that he would find his way inside. When he did, he would seize the castle and his stupid crown too. The Lick, seeing him off, said that only through his non-living corpse, and with that they said goodbye. Vainker thought that maybe it had started as a mission, but now it was like a war, and it was a war for treasure. Thinking about his poor treasures, Vainker understood that he needed to take care of them, for sure and confident that the minions had put them in some safe place. Flying up to the ship that was standing nearby, Vainker thought that his treasure was safe, but the minions, it was nowhere to be seen whether they had really escaped like these goblins who had been with him before. Looking at the moon while sitting, Vainker thought that of course this couldn't be because the man Victor loved him too much, and, squeezing the ring that Victor put on his finger, the dragon thought that the young man must have been somewhere nearby. At this moment a fire was burning in the city and there were needles everywhere as they lit a large fire. Chocolatine and Kwasun looked at what was happening and Vainker was thinking that he hoped that Victor was okay. But Victor was tied to a huge tree and thought that this world was terrible. Victor, turning to his opponents, said that he was useless as a victim, that they had to untie him. At that moment one of the villagers read some kind of spell, and Chocolatine asked her brother if it was reasonable, because he was an ally of the dragon, a dragon who is already furious. Then the brother said that he burned down their previous house, turning to the girl and saying that that is why she did not want him to destroy this one in which they were now. Everyone else also raised their hands and said that they agreed with Chocolatine. It was stupid and besides, it was barbaric. Sev said that she was sure that Victor was simply following the orders of the dragon. Victor said that it was indeed true and he was forced to watch while the dragon destroyed everything. He and the young man said that he asked the guild. After the dragon destroyed everything, the guild confirmed that his human partner was the one who brought the dragon into their forests. At this moment, our hero said that Vainker melted the forest of his own free will, but Kwasun said that the young man still brought this dragon into their forests. Residents said that they watched all the livestock die. Someone burned his house and that at that moment Kwasun, addressing the residents and his sister Chocolatine, said that democracy was winning, because everyone was in favor of burning the guy. She said that she tried to save our hero and apologized to him. Looking at her, the young man asked if she really wasn't going to untie him, but the girl said that he could not say these nonsense, because then her life would be in danger, and Victor thought that it was wonderful, because his girlfriend had not changed a bit, and the truth they said that right before the end, your whole life really flashes before your eyes. Our hero cried, remembering that only 2 years had passed since he arrived in the city. Before that he was just an ordinary student studying economics in Chicago. He was naive, crippled by student debt and full of hope. One day, while walking down the street, he was not thinking about anything, and then he heard screams in the gateway. It was a girl from his campus. They even attended the same classes several times, and he decided that this was his chance to become a hero. Our hero saw her in the alley. A man was attacking the girl with a knife and therefore decided to help her, telling the man to stop this, but everything did not go according to plan. The girl ran away, and the man, having hit the young man with a knife, began to run away, and bleeding along the way, our hero asked someone to help him. Do you know those Japanese novels where at the beginning of the story someone dies? He is either killed or hit by a truck, and at that moment leaning on the wall he is trying to get to the main street, and as he comes forward he sees a truck rushing straight at him, and he understood that he had received a complete set. The next thing he woke up in an empty room in heaven. Having read many books, the young man knew what to expect. The beautiful goddess would ask him to save the fantasy world. but she must have set a trap for him, because instead of her he received a bone, which he had to throw into, because the bone asked our hero to do this, looking at him with all your eyes. Seeing that the bone was talking, our hero asked what it was for, and she said that she was a bone, and the god of a random number. And now the young man had to throw it away for the sake of his life after death, and screamed for the young man to throw it. The next moment, our hero grabbed the bone and thought that he realized that his retirement into the fantasy world would not go as expected. After throwing the die, he heard the word number 3 rebirth in Outermond, only with his clothes and his mark. The next moment, the field under our hero lit up, and he realized that something had gone wrong. The next moment our hero fell and thought that there was no point in this, but the bone shouted after him that she was God and her actions did not have to make sense. The next moment the young man landed in the kingdom of Gardenmire, and earned a personal perk chosen by the bone. When you level up you have an additional 10% chance of gaining a skill point, and with luck your chances of receiving a critical hit are doubled. At that moment, our hero was lying on the ground and thinking that he knew nothing about this world and even their language. But he learned quickly. Then he saw bandits in front of him who pointed their weapons at him. He understood that they had axes, swords, he had a shirt and pants, and then even that was gone. Arriving in the city completely naked, he thought that he managed to get to the city, but no one helped him, and, freezing from the cold, our hero lay on the ground. He tried to understand if anyone had extra clothes. Did no one want to help him? Then suddenly someone called him, and when he heard that someone was calling him, he realized that someone was speaking English. Then it was he who said that the young man should not speak so loudly, that he knew a little of their language, if the marks on his hand could be trusted. Then the young man was the new chosen one. Having heard about the fact that he was the new chosen one, our hero understood absolutely nothing. Oh, what the stranger asked him. The stranger said that someone who was chosen by the gods, reborn from another world, in their world, and then our hero asked if there were others like him, and then the stranger said that there were such 1,000 most famous heroes, the Shining Knight-Killer, chosen by the bone. Such as he, like our hero, was unlucky. It is the god of luck who calls people about this by chance. But they could discuss it inside after the young man puts on something. Addressing our hero in front of him, Sev stood, was afraid. Opened the door. Our hero said that his name was Victor Dalton. Sev, turning to Victor, asked, since he was new here and was looking for a job, because one of his guys slipped on the stairs after talking to the wrong people, Sev reported. The young man asked if this was honest work. Then Sev reported that she could not promise this, but the young man would receive food and a roof over his head and friends in the underground. Our hero understood that he did not have to choose his position, so he entered the Nightblades, the greatest guild of thieves and assassins. He remained in the thieves branch under the tutelage of Sev, learning the local language. Such a life had its perks, literally. The lockpick perk could gain a natural ability for anything like picking locks. In addition, he could attempt to stealthily pickpocket others with a successful check. An eye for treasure. The young man can correctly determine the properties of any object located in his line of sight, and also irradiated one knife master. When embarrassed, received advanced efficiency in handling daggers and knives, the chance of inflicting a critical hit plus 10%. But he understood that theft was a dead-end job. He could rot in jail or die after 2 years. He thought about the fact that it was possible to change his career. When Victor reported this, they asked him if the young man really wanted to leave them, because he was the best earner. He told him. The young man said that because the previous one was promoted and the new boss seemed to be very interested in contract killings, and not in the redistribution of income. And Sev said that waste disposal needed to be remembered about the jargon. But she understood that what we meant was the new guild master was quite bloodthirsty, she said. Victor had advised that if he stayed, he would most likely be forced to take assassin levels, and he didn't want to cross that line. He explained. Sev, turning to Victor, said that he was in a gang of blades and that they leave only in a coffin. Whether he remembers this or not and whether she was going to give him away, our hero asked. Sitting down, she said that she can close her eyes when necessary. They know how to do it well. And besides, the young man was a friend and she suggested that I would do so. He could leave before dawn. She would pretend that the city guard hanged him. Having heard this, Victor thanked his friend in clinking glasses. She told him not to come back, otherwise she would have to kill him to save her face, and said that she liked the young man but not enough to die for him. Our hero understood that he remained her debtor. So Victor left Noblecourt, under the cover of darkness, without ever looking back. After leaving the city, our hero headed into the desert, after which he decided that it was worth trying to become an adventurer, like the Shining Knight, to start with a clean slate. The Valban Adventurers Guild was recruiting new recruits, so he went there and now he was registered as an independent adventurer. where he just met SHVR Lin. After talking with the girl, he thanked her for not paying special attention to his resume, and the girl thanked him too, saying that everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone, even thieves. What task did our hero want to take first? Asked Charlene, and he saw that something was written about the rapier. Looking at the ad, the girl said that it had been collecting dust for a long time and that the young man could try. Victor thought that he just needed to climb the mountain and get the lost sword and thought that it would be a piece of cake, looking at the task that was in his hands. But then our hero realized that this task would not be easy in general, remembering everything that happened to him until today. Victor thought about all this, hanging on a tree tied to him. At that moment everyone said that they hated him and that it was necessary to burn this man. Looking at the whole crowd that was in front of him, Victor felt bad, and the next moment he appeared in front of everyone, the light and closing themselves off from it. No one understood what it was. Suddenly the moon began to shine more often, and our hero thought about the gods and what it was, and the man with the face of an octopus said that the child of the moon man had to accept this sacrifice of flesh and blood. And the only thing our hero did in this situation, what a man could do in such a situation, is that our hero called Vainker for help. The moon man came and looked at everyone that was in front of him and at his victim. Looking at the moon man, Chocolatin talked about how beautiful he was, and everyone froze in anticipation, because from just looking at this thing, their heads began to hurt, everyone thought, and our hero, looking at the moon man, wondered if this one was going to eat him. At this point, the perk reported that the charisma check was successful, and the madness was cancelled. Then, saying that it was them again. "Where is this going?" the man with the face of an octopus said. "The great child of the moon man." He asked to accept his sacrifice as atonement for their mistakes. Then he said that he did not understand the movement of his soft tongue towards the leather bag. But one day he would lose his composure and suddenly delve into its pseudopodia, which he uses to remove excrement, said the moon child. The moon beast answers them. "Mere mortals," said the man with the head of an octopus. At that moment our hero thought that they really didn't understand what the creature was saying. Besides, it itself was not happy to be here. Turning to Sir, our hero asked, he would like to note that he had nothing to do with this disorder. Having heard that our hero could talk to him, the moon child asked if he really spoke Archean, addressing the leather bag. Victor said that he understood him, thanks to his perk, a relative of the monsters. Then seeing this picture, the man with the head of an octopus said that the young man was able to understand the moon beast, while maintaining his sanity. It was very unusual at that moment. Croissant and Chocolatine admired our hero. Then our hero explained to the moon beast that if he also understood him, then words would not be able to describe how inedible the young man was. Hearing this, the monster didn't understand why he had to eat it. He doesn't even have pseudopodia, and these movements disgust him, and he spoke like a tumor with this big disgusting pile of hair. Hearing this, our hero said that having hair was simply terrible, almost as terrible as being tied to a tree, and being threatened with death. Then the moon child said that he would tell him what was really terrible. Gamete is minding her own business, enjoying her once-in-a-lifetime vacation until the stars line up and come back to work. Also so close to eating a delicious telepathic spider, and then someone pulls him outright with what appears to be food in the tentacles, and they throw it at the screaming human cub. And then the monster explained to our hero that people did this every damn moon, and then our hero, looking at the monster, thought that it was not surprising that he was beside himself with anger telling him this. The young man asked the monster why he didn't eat them instead. The moon man said that the god was absent-minded, so it was he and his children who had to engage in his cults. He just wanted them to stop calling on him so often, said the moon child. He didn't know why they got the idea that the moon man needed living sacrifices, looking at the people who were chanting his name. Victor said that it was most likely because they didn't understand what he was saying. He could have made them stop it if the moon god wanted it. Hearing this, the moon god said that if the young man could arrange this, then he would be very happy. Then our hero reported that first they would have to free him. Agreeing with ours, he said that he would do it no matter what the cost. The next moment, cutting the ropes, our hero jumped out of his captivity. Turning to the moon child, the young man asked what his name was. He said that his name was Tulgatter. Turning to the Gamete leather bag, turning to our hero, the moon child called it that. Then suddenly the Croissant said that this guy could burn their houses and that it was necessary to stop this. But then suddenly one of the people, with the head of an octopus on his head, said that the moon beast spared the victim in order to make it with his mouth. Victor, addressing everyone, said that Tulgatter said that lunar sacrifices were not required to demonstrate loyalty to his ruler. Informed them all, then everyone understood how they needed to honor the lunar man. Hearing this, our hero conveyed this message to the moon child, saying that people were asking what they could replace the sacrifices with. Hearing this, he said that they should do the moonwalk every full moon and eat their own feces, but then he said that he shouldn't have said that, but it would be funny. Then turning to our hero, he blinked to tell them that they had to pray to the moon man to grant them insight by reading forbidden texts under the light of the moon and tell them to stop with cannibalism. Hearing this, Victor said that people had to pray to the lunar man to grant them insight by reading forbidden texts under the light of the moon, and also by eating other intelligent beings. This is a sin for the lunar man. Then one friend asked the question, what about marriage among cousins? Were they still allowed? And then, hearing this, the moon child said that this was forbidden, but relatives from the wife or husband were allowed. And then Victor said that it was impossible to lie with the one with whom you were of the same blood. Repeated invocations will prevent the monster from guiding other civilizations to the triumph that people have achieved enlightenment to be under self-government. At that moment, they were all happy, and the monster just looked at this and at our hero, who told him that he thought that now people would leave him alone. Looking at the young man, he said that it was so, talking about interesting gambit people, and what they finished or not, thanked the skin bag and asked to give him his hand so that he could reward everything on behalf of his father. Our hero thought that it was really cool to get something good out of this mess. The next moment, our hero was blessed by the star offspring of the moon man, and he received a personal perk, chosen by the moon man. When our hero levels up, he has an additional 10% chance of gaining charisma points. He receives madness immunity, and a lunar effect, like those other than those created by the smart man and his servants. Addressing a person, he asked if he needed a job. He was looking for personnel to manage his minions. The monster said, our hero said that he was very apologetic, but he was already busy with the dragon. And turning to Sir, he heard about the dragon. The moon man said that there were dragons prestigious, but they don't pay their minions extra. He said, the young man, smiling, said that he couldn't imagine how bad it was. He liked the other minions. He explained to the young man. The moon man disappeared, saying that it was our hero's business, but if he changed his mind, he could visit him on the moon. The next moment our hero asked what he could do with the bodybuilders, and disappearing, he said that the young man could deal with them. He also earned the monster's Squire class level by rallying minions by making strong and powerful statements, such as die by his hands or die by his power, for a short time increasing the characteristics of the minions by one stage, the system reported, which gave +5 points for this. The next moment, everyone was glad that there were no casualties, and Sev said that it was a great job. Turning to Victor, she did not understand half of what happened, but the young man coped with everything like a real champion, and our hero said that he could not have done it without her help. And then suddenly the werewolves appeared behind him, saying that they were not at all happy. If the moon man was gone, then Kwasun would eat him. The sister at that moment tried to save the hero, and then everyone came to his defense, saying that he would not touch the prophet of their god. Kwasun said that it was necessary to stop this madness. At that moment, all the wolves gathered next to Kwasun, ready to attack. At that very moment, Vainker appeared, inviting the servant, and seeing his majesty, he said that he had never been so happy to see. Descending to our hero, Vainker said that of course, without his presence, the young man was deprived of the meaning of existence from the past. Who was it next to him? Were these his new minions? Below, Vainker saw a werewolf, and he said that they destroyed their house. Then our hero reported that these were survivors from the forest of Jevoden, which burned his majesty. The dragon said that they should apologize to him right away, turning to the wolf, but that he did not understand at all why he had to apologize to Vainker. The dragon explained that if he had died in the fire, he would have received even more treasure, and they had to change everything by becoming his new minions. He wanted to object, but he was interrupted again. The dragon said that he was a dragon who had never tasted a wolf before. Turning to the servant Victor, he asked whether the wolf was food, to which our hero said that everything depended on Kwasun himself, and asked whether Kwasun wanted to be food. In this moment, Kwasun said he was beginning to feel like the young man was not just following orders. Victor said that this could be a worthy excuse. Our hero said that it was a damn right decision, and then Kwasun said that Vainker should not eat him. Vainker said that he would not eat Kwasun until they ran out of food or sheep, and told the servant that he had to become a wizard. Having heard that Wenger wanted to become a wizard, our hero was very surprised. At that moment, the dragon was devouring another sheep. Vainker, turning to Victor, reported that he wanted to become a wizard with an old hat. Without becoming a wizard, he would not be able to destroy the magical barrier protecting the Lick's castle. He would not be able to heal his treasury. they had to destroy the evil Furibon. Addressing the servant Victor, the dragon said, for the sake of all the treasures of the present and future. Turning to Victor, he said that Furibon is the greatest threat to the dragon's way of life since Middle Times. Evil. Then at that moment our hero asked if there were insects that eat gold. Vainker said that there were such people. He thought that being an adventurer meant simply increasing the size of his treasuries. Now he realized that he was blind to the dangers that lay ahead. Vainker reported that threats to all treasuries were hidden in this world. He was obliged to destroy them all. At this moment, our hero thought that this was a heroic speech. Vainker is actually ready to fight on the side of good. This greatly shocked our hero, who was looking at the dragon right in front of him. Furibon is a cruel and heartless monster who takes pleasure in taking away all the value of this world and going down to the young man. The dragon asked to imagine what would happen if he spread the spell beyond the boundaries of his castle, and asked our hero to imagine a world without gold. Our hero understood that all his guesses were false. The next moment Vainker said that a person would not be able to and he would not be able to. Furibon is evil and must be stopped, so he will break the magical barrier, invade the dungeon and destroy this lick forever. Vainker said that it was necessary to gather minions, because tomorrow they were supposed to go to war. At that moment, spitting out their flames into the sky. There was a war brewing. Posters were posted all over the city and everyone was saying that the coin babies needed to be saved and they also needed to join the war against Furibon. Despite these signs, Vainker said that the enemy was there. He was plotting to destroy the gold. As such, only he could stop him. Victor, turning to his majesty, asked how he felt and whether he was okay, saying that he sent them to recruit new minions. Because before that Vainker asked about where the kobold rangers were. And having heard our hero's answer, he said that everything was fine. The more minions they have that they can throw at the lick, the better it will be. Vainker, turning to his servant Victor, said that now he was his faithful advisor. He would collect information about this dungeon and about every trap, and about every defender on the orders of the dragon. Victor could only obey. Also, according to Vainker, Victor had to study ways to become a wizard stronger than Furibon, who is evil. Vainker talked about how he had to destroy this enemy. At that moment our hero, looking at the dragon, said that he had never seen Vainker so serious and so purposeful. It was really scary. Turning to the two werewolves, Victor asked what the two knew about the Lick's house and said that not much, besides the fact that it is teeming with monsters and the undead. Chocolatine said. And Quasin said that dragons could even become wizards, asking our hero. Then Vainker heard them say that dragons can become anyone. Addressing the majesty, for him to gain wizard levels would not be optimal. He would need half a century of study to get close to Furibon's skill level, Victor said. Having listened to him, the dragon informed Victor that 50 years for him is the duration of a short sleep. Our hero replied that by that time he would already be an old man. And why not just hire a professional wizard? He asked Vainker. The dragon said that this was his battle and he would not rely on a hired minion to win it for him. Vainker reported and confirmed the fact that his gold was sick, and therefore he said that not only Furibon can only take revenge, but can also heal him. Vainker explained, while everyone tried to take his gold away from the ship they were flying on earlier. Our hero, turning to his majesty, said that his treasures were not lost forever. Most of his assets were simply frozen. Then Vainker said that there must be gold in the treasury, otherwise it would not shine enough. Speaking to himself, the dragon called himself the great calamity of this era. None of those who mocked him would survive. After which, turning to Furibon, he said that he made him feel like a beggar because of this he had to die. Chocolatine, looking at the enraged Vainker, asked whether he should not have become dead. At that moment everyone was saying that it was the same thing. Warships will not be able to burn him like a dragon. He will do everything possible to destroy him. And Victor, addressing his majesty, said that perhaps university is an easier solution than years of study to become a wizard. At this moment, Vainker, who had been delayed, asked what solution Victor was offering him. Victor was explaining about the Witch Hunter class, which specializes in killing spellcasters and monsters. With enough charisma points, he could break the castle's barrier, and the dragon wondered what his charisma had to do with breaking the barrier. Chocolatine intervened in the conversation. The girl said that the capabilities of most classes revolve around specific characteristics. For wizards it's intelligence, for players it's luck, and for witch hunters it's charisma, and dragons are very charming. Everyone loves them. At this moment, having heard what the girl was saying, the dragon said that it was natural. Victor, addressing the dragon, said that charisma also represents willpower. Witch hunters can dispel magic or bring down holy punishment on their enemies. But Victor explained to His Majesty, addressing the dragon, that it would be necessary to use special glasses as fuel for these abilities. Calling up the menu, the dragon wanted to see what was in it, and told the servant that his charisma was equal to 79. Hearing this, the young man said that it was 3 times more than his. Chocolatine, looking at the dragon, was also very surprised to hear this number, and then Vainker said that everyone loved him. To open classes, it was necessary to find a spellcaster or demon, which His Majesty would then kill, and the dragon said that then it was necessary to bring him a witch so that she would be like Furibon, who is evil and had to be destroyed. One problem they have in the city is not many witches, but similar spellcasters. Except Allison wasn't, she has druid levels. Turning to Chocolatine, he waited for Croissant's confirmation, and upon hearing this the girl said that they would not burn Allison, because she was her best friend. Vainker said that he had a better idea. They could summon demons as training targets, he explained. Hearing that they could summon demons, Victor asked the dragon again, and Chocolatine said that they could summon demon spellcasters. She called them and the guys could kill them. Then she collected their body parts. Croissant told Chocolatine that they would not endure the sacrifice to summon demons and then kill them. It was too dangerous. But with this method everyone wins, the girl says, because they will receive meat, experience, fertilizers for the farm. Vainker, listening to them, shouted that he was able to get the witch hunter level in this way by asking our hero. Victor explained that technically yes, but calling demons just to kill them is like making a prank call on hell itself. And then turning to the servant, the dragon asked if the young man didn't understand. They both could make money at this level. He killed the demons, and the young man revives them as humiliation and turns them into minions, and no waste was reported by him. Hearing this, Victor said that it was cruel, but effective, asking how many intelligence points His Majesty had. The next moment the dragon showed the menu. The menu showed that he had 14 points and he started success with 9. The next moment he asked our hero why he was asking this. Having heard this number, Victor said that he was afraid to imagine that His Majesty would come up with a big number of points. Vainker that at first the young man would allow the demons to use perks on him so that he could learn how Furibon's curse was on the young man. He played that he would prefer not to do this. The next moment Vainker began to pick him up with his claw. The young man said that he really had an effect on him nerves. Croissant also said that it was a great idea, agreeing with the dragon, and Victor understood that he remained trapped. Chocolatine told Victor that everything was fine. A quick prayer to her god and Isengram and the young man would be fine. Then, looking at her, Victor thought, would her god really approve of such a plan? He asked, because he thought that he was one of the kindest gods. The girl said that God, of course, would approve of everything, because there is the 7th commandment, respect the hunt. With sparkling eyes, Chocolatine spoke about the need to hunt to get food or reduce the size of the herd, but never for profit or pleasure, never to the point of extermination. The exception is demons and undead. The girl said, demons and undead can be hunted for pleasure and profit and to the point of extermination. Saying all this, the girl looked very bloodthirsty. Then seeing her reaction, Victor asked if Chocolatine was always like this, turning to her brother Croissant, and he said that the girl was in a good mood today. At this point, Vainker shouted that they had to do everything for the sake of profit. A few minutes later, the girl drew some kind of pentagram on the ground in which there was a ram, and the next moment she waved a stick and said that she was calling on a small demon. Then a demon suddenly appeared and said that this was a hellish support service for witches, asking how he could help them. Did they really want to sell their souls in exchange for magical powers or something else? Seeing Vainker in front of him, he was completely stunned that the dragon appeared right in front of him. Our heroes carefully watched his reaction. The next moment, the demon was incinerated. Looking at his feet, Vainker asked why the demons were so fragile, because he not only earned a level, but also strange money with the crowd favorite was activated. Vainker said he earned a witch hunter class level by clearing spells using 1 special point per second. He could emit a field of anti-magic energy that automatically cancels any spell within the cast radius, including their own spells. To counter a spell, his charisma level had to be higher than the spell's effective level, the spell's level plus the caster's base stats at the time the spell was cast. Croissant said that he was thinking that could the eternal forces of hell be against this method of training. Then the young man asked why Croissant got it, and looking at the dead man, he used his powers to revive him. At this moment, Chocolatine was saying that His Majesty could leave a little more meat next time. She really wanted to try cooking the demon heart with beans. Addressing Chocolatine, the dragon told her to summon another target, and he would grant her wish. And so, for the first time in his life, Vainker the Nightslayer began to train seriously. The guys again called upon the demons and tried to deal with them. At the castle, the Lick examined his potions and thought that the decoction was finally ready. Pouring the contents of what he had made into one jar. Drinking this jar, he thought that this was what he needed. There was coffee in the jar, and the Lick thought that he had not tasted coffee since he turned into an undead. But the sight of it filled him with nostalgia as he walked through his castle. He thought, the dungeon building was not just a job, it was a way of life. Skills of working with people are trained here, unconditional love for animals, and also a lot of patience looking at the sharks that hunted people. Lick thought to himself, walking between this with coffee. The Lick thought about that, but when he finally manages to build a good trap, the screams of each victim make it clear that it was worth it. The next moment, the skeleton greeted him, greeting him and wishing him good morning. Then the Lick greeted his subordinate and asked in what condition the death traps were. He explained that the traps were ready for the adventurers. Then, turning to Sir, the subordinate said that they did not feed the black beast. The Lick, hearing this, said that it was good, because hunger makes this beast more ferocious. At that moment, someone began to call him, and the Lick turned his attention to the one who called him, asking what happened. Using clearing invisibility, at that moment he saw Vainker hanging on his protective dome. Seeing Vainker, Lick thought that this lizard had come again and wanted to attack him. Holding his coffee in his hands, he became so angry that the glass cracked, and then looking at Vainker, he used refining spells to fight him. People who watched this said that it was a shame and asked to save the little coins, saying that Furibon could be removed from the throne. Looking also at the people who said that the justice of the treasury had to prevail, and that it was necessary to stop Furibon. Looking out the window, he did not understand whether they had to do this every day. This made him very angry. Looking at the annoying people, Leech spoke about that, for his minions to send ninjas. Having heard about the ninjas, the servants obeyed their master, and he said that it was necessary to rule the ninja demons, to disperse this rabble. Appearing in front of all the residents, the ninja tried to disperse them, and they asked His Majesty to help, and Vainker, flying up, said that the Lick would not be able to evade justice forever. The Lick thought to himself that this unbearable snake had earned new levels, as he had already satisfied the criterion for refining spells at this rate. It was only a matter of time before he could become strong enough to break his barrier, thought the Lick as he watched the dragon. Below, the people who stood in front of Vainker were retreating back because the dragon was trying to attack them, and he said that this Lick's army was entirely made up of cowards. Hearing this, Victor said that His Highness was absolutely right and asked how today's attack went. He explained that there was a tactical draw. Turning to the Majesty, they said that, as the chief ordered, they collected all the kobolds they could find. Victor, along with the kobold, only looked at them, and Vainker, seeing this, told his servant Victor that he was proud of his initiative. Victor acted like a true head of staff as he remembered him begging him to make him his minion forever and marveling at how much the young man had grown. Victor thought that he remembered their first meeting differently, completely different from what Vainker had said. And he said that now his version had to be believed because it was official. The next moment, turning to the servant, he asked if these kobolds had been tested in battle. Everyone bowed to Vainker and said that they had not yet been tested, and turning to His Highness, and that Victor explained that they had taken them on as unpaid trainees. Vainker liked this, and he asked that when they were on probation, they would have to be under Victor's responsibility. Sitting in front of Vainker, the kobolds looked straight at their future master, and he told the minions who were not shining enough to become part of his treasury. War, and one of the kobolds asked if they had what it took to become a true servant. Then they could join the war against Furibon, and Victor showed that they had to raise their hands up and said that they had to vote for His Majesty and for his treasury. The servant Victor spoke to Vainker, turning to our hero, and informed him that they were returning to training. In the meantime, he had to weaken the fighting spirit of the Lick, and Igor had to be reminded of his inevitable destruction every minute of the short life allotted to him. I just looked at all this from the side and thought that Vainker had to be incarnated for this. He was so angry that he even hit the wall that was next to him, causing the wall to break under his blow. Then suddenly someone asked who dares to disturb the Demon King of Ishvania, the legendary and unique Brandon Moore. Seeing His Majesty, the Lick was silent, and he said that he saw his servant and asked who is more worthy than anyone in the world. Then the lick said that it was His Highness. His Highness looked at the lick from the picture that was right in front of him and said that it was of course so, and who else but Brandon should be the most beautiful in the world, and brought a look at his splendor of cashmere and his delicate skin. Then the lick addressed His Majesty as him. It is known that he was now under siege, and asked when he could expect reinforcements. Hearing this, Moore spoke about reinforcements, that the lick would never be able to wait for him. Upon hearing this, the lick was completely stunned and told His Majesty that he absolutely needed it. Brandon Moore reported that Brandon Moore's grand bullfight will be held in a few weeks, and he wants all his minions to applaud him after his inevitable victory, he told Lick. The Lick, having heard this, only asked if he was invited, and Brandon Moore said that of course not. Until he completed his task, he had to bring Brandon Moore his pineapple of wisdom. This item is very important for Brandon Moore's next military campaign. He was very unhappy when the Scorchers failed to deliver it to him and told the Lick not to contact Brandon Moore until he returned the treasure. And the snake skin also needed to be brought, and he said that Brandon Moore needed new shoes. Ray, looking at his winner, said that it would be done. Then a friend he heard that he was leaving the military Knights of Assassins unattended. It was unreasonable that he was a strong opponent, which was demonstrated by the loss of their agents in Hodmer, said the girl standing not far from Brandon Moore. He, while getting dressed, said that it was possible to assume that it was possible that this reptile could do this in order to defeat Fuhrman, and that the bag of bones was no longer at the peak of its strength, but it was more than strong enough to serve the pestilence. While putting on his clothes, Moore said that in any case, he has more important things to do. For example, he should wear all the gold and or silver for his triumph. Gold is a classic, but silver goes better with his hair, and he told the girl who was standing not far from him. The girl, looking at him, thought that Brandon Moore was an arrogant fool, but he was useful. As long as he and the mortals continue to fight, they will win in the end, she thought as she looked at Brandon, the demon who was emerging from his chambers in his sparkling outfits. The Lick, being in his castle, thought that he had kept this border from the paladins for centuries. Was it really his gratitude, and where remind him why he was caused by the order of this brat? Speaking about Brandon Moore, perhaps he should have moved to a new dungeon after that, and he used enhanced clairvoyance. Turning to the light of his mirror, Moore asked to say who was guarding the pineapple of wisdom. Then the dragon saw the guy in watching hours. Who would have thought? He thought that he would finally pay Mr. Victor another visit. Smiling and looking at the reflection in the water, where was our hero, I thought. The next demon asked to wait and not kill him, but by poking him with his giant claw, Vainker dealt with him in an instant, so that the birds, hearing these sounds, flew away from their trees nearby. At this moment of the war, he looked at the new treasure that appeared before him. Chocolatine, turning to His Majesty, said that she had run out of small demons to summon and asked if he wanted to switch to the larger ones. Vainker reported that no, he didn't want to, and he would never get bored with getting rich, but grinding levels was exhausting. At this moment, Chocolatine, looking at him, sulked and said that she needed more corpses to feed him to the pigs. Turning to His Majesty, Victor asked if he had finished mocking Satan. Having seen the servant, Victor believed that he could get the 11th level of a witch hunter and asked if the system was broken. Victor, exhausted by all this, said that the penalties for gaining experience increase with the level, telling His Majesty. Victor also reported that killing weak creatures works well up to level 20, but then the system gives rewards only for fighting opponents who are able to fight back. Venki said that it means he was stuck at the 10th level of the witch hunter, but so far he is insignificant, walking on which is evil and had to be destroyed. Addressing His Majesty, Victor stood with a cup of coffee and asked if the dragon could show him new perks. Then Vainker showed our hero her tablets, and there were class perks: Burning a Witch, Low Magical Resistance, Level 1 Exorcism, and Hunter's Determination. Victor said that Burning a Witch allows his fire attacks to ignore magical resistance and deals additional holy damage. At this moment of the war, he said that his breath would burn like the core of the sun, and before that he did nothing. Victor explained that low magical resistance allowed him to ignore weak hunters' resolve spells and help resist mind control spells. He allowed His Majesty to learn and cast level 1 exorcism spells, and yet, turning to His Majesty, Victor said that he was now the ultimate antipathetic tank. Having heard about the tank, he asked what it was, because it sounded very impressive. The young man explained that it meant that no one hit harder than His Majesty. Looking at the papers, Victor asked Kwasun to send residents with the highest class levels to them so that they could help the attacks of the Dryad and Life Golem, informed the young man. Looking at the papers that were in his hands and giving his toy to the kobold that was next to him. It was necessary to let these people through. The Iron Golem was not suitable for the role of servants, Having heard this, Victor asked what Vainker was talking about. He also believed that they needed to think about it, contacting the press service, because they would not be able to seat the metal golem if they ran out of food. Then seeing this, Victor said that he could hunt for food instead of them. Vainker said that they were not hunting weaklings, but Furibon, who is evil and had to be destroyed, and then Victor asked His Majesty going to repeat from every time they mentioned him. But the dragon said that he would do it because it was a war, everyone had to know about it. Chocolatine, addressing our heroes, said that Rollo grows the best ingredients and also creates the best tools. Also, Allison, her best friend, and Vainker said that they would not tolerate 100 batteries among the servants. But he agreed, said that he would give them a chance, and hoped that the contract would be thick enough for two. Who appeared Rolla and asked whether he was invited to be an actor or not, and also ate, seeing his friend's chocolate. He ran up to him and was very happy. Our hero also greeted them and said that if you think about it like that, he didn't thank them for standing up for him during that sacrifice fiasco. Elle said that she could not keep her mouth shut. Human sacrifices were barbaric, she said. She was sorry that she could not do more to stop that mess. Turning to Victor, the young man said that everything ended well, but it was moments like these that made him download in the United States. Having heard about the United States, she asked what it was from, asked if he was from New York or something like Togo, and he said that he was from Chicago, and then it dawned on him and he asked how the girl knew about it. She closed her mouth, realizing that she had said the wrong thing. The young man asked if she was also a rebirth of the earth. The girl ended for him. At that moment our hero found a kindred spirit, and Vainker and everyone else watching them did not understand what the guys were talking about. The young man asked where the girl was from, and she said that although she was not a person, she didn't complain, because this body was much better, and she was from Morocco, but she was half Spanish, on her mother's side, explained War and Rolla, who were following their conversation. We didn't understand at all what our heroes were talking about. Al showed him the mark on his neck, and then Victor, looking at it, asked if it was a mark, the goddess of pleasure and fertility. The girl explained that it was so because this is the only thing that people pay attention to, and the young man was aware that she was also a goddess forests and knowledge. Victor Grigoriev apologized because he was not religious. Here, friend Chocolatin intervened in their conversation, saying that the Moon Man had made him his prophet, and the young man asked not to remind him of this. Al said that she was quite happy with her own faith. She died a stupid death, and then an amazing goddess appears in front of her and says that Allison would like to come back to life and start restoring the land. The girl said, turning to our hero and telling him this story, asking how, but she could refuse. Now she could help Rollo with his eco-farming project on Earth. She was a car mechanic, although golems were not like cars, but she managed. Chocolatine, having climbed onto Raul, said that he was level 67, all in the farmer. Hearing this, our hero looked at the huge roll and did not understand whether this was really so, because he had a higher level than the Shining Knight, and Elle said that Rolls refused to raise levels in anything other than a farmer until he reaches his goal. Rollo said that he had a dream to see the red desert turn green again, and Vainker said that he was right. This area was greener several centuries ago, and said that it was until the co-owner dried it up. The Elven Empire ruled the southern continent until it was captured by the cultists of Sabra the Destroyer. These Sybarites caused a magical cataclysm that turned their empire, including the province, into a desert, which allowed the demon king Brandon and his allies to capture it. Now the entire empire and Africa of this world is a lifeless sea of sand. Hearing about the Liberia of this world, Victor was very surprised and then asked if he had not yet seen the full picture of Orpiment, and the young man said that he only saw garden measures in Spain. The next moment she told him to look carefully because it was a map of the continent Mistral including Gardner and stitching. The young man said that it looked like a rough map of Europe with some errors, and suddenly he said that this was really what he was thinking about, looking at the map right in front of him. Elle said that the actor is a magical mirror of the earth with quite big differences, but they have a continent like Atlantis, Malta and so on. Hearing this, Vainker turned to his servant and asked that they were here to discuss the future as meat bills. They were for friendly chat. Turning to His Majesty and then to the girl, Victor asked what her level was. The girl answered that she was level 24. Basically she was a druid and a Vestal virgin. Victor said that this was ideal, which means she could solve them while they were storming the dungeon, and Elle said, did they really want to storm the dungeon? She couldn't, because as a dryad she physically couldn't move further than a mile from her orchard without dying, and she said they haven't hired her yet. Listen to this, Vainker, that from there the girl was fired. She was fired from the post of food as a last resort. Now she was a simple food, and Chocolatine said that she could use the needs of useful spells even if she cannot go far, and Rolo can create a variety of useful items. Rolo, holding Chocolatine in his hands, said that Rolo could make any agricultural tool, and the girl said that he could make anything, and perhaps agricultural tools if he tried hard, armored scythes, cannons, and so on. Hearing this, Vainker said that this changes everything. Turning, the golem hit that now he was his main gunsmith, and turning to his uncle, since she could not move now she kept a reserve. Rolo said that he would start work as soon as he fed the chickens, and Victor, turning to Rolo, asked before she went if she could somehow have a drink with him. He would talk to her about the land, and the girl said that only if for his account. Having heard this, Chocolatine asked if she could also come. The next moment, Vainker, turning to the servant, asked if he had not reproduced with the man Charlene. Victor said that it is difficult to maintain relationships while in different countries, but Allison looks nice, and then Vainker, turning to the servant, said that if he liked this person, then he had to impress with the size of his treasury, value it with his gold, and then he realized that's what dragons do. But first estimate the size of her treasure. You can't let the poor take care of your eggs. Turning to His Majesty, Victor asked if he only met with the rich, and Vainker asked the young man that why would he lay eggs in another dragon. More dragons means more competitors for his future treasury. Reproduction is reserved for creatures like Victor, those who soon die, who constantly have to prolong the existence of their species in order to avoid extinction. Listen to all this, Victor said that, be that as it may, they are done with recruiting. Both Chocolatine and Croissant have class levels that could help with the dungeon. Chocolatine can work as a healer and Croissant as a meat shield for traps because he didn't hate him, and Vainker said that he liked the idea of a minion. The next moment, Vainker earned a noble level stipend. He received a monthly stipend of 400 gold coins multiplied by their general level. Hearing this, Vainker thought that he would finally see his treasury growing again. But then he suddenly heard that someone could turn it into gold and lead again, and said that this simply could not happen. The Lick said that this was retribution for constantly annoying him, and turning to the brainless lizard, because the truth was said that silence was gold. It was the Lick who flew to the close to war. The hero was able to turn his new gold into lead. Then suddenly seeing the danger, Victor shouted to His Majesty to use a clearing spell. But it was too late, and the dragon began to attack Furibon, and he used a teleport to escape from his opponent. The next moment, Vainker tried to attack the Lick. Turning to Victor, Vainker said that there would be no more trading, because now he knew that tomorrow they would finally capture this dungeon. A war is brewing in Murmurin. Everyone tried to burn the corpse of the Lick in order to win the future war, because the fire entered the hearts of the soldiers, and they all chanted the name of Vainker, who was supposed to be the winner, and smashed the forges to found a new weapon. Breathing out flames, the dragon burned the effigy of the Lick, and our hero got a new military headquarters. Looking at the house so that right in front of him, the young man asked everyone if there were ghosts in this house, and sat down and said that he heard what the dark wizard had done before. There are disgusting experiments in the basement, but no one has lived here for many years, and the young man will be all right. Victor, listening, said that why didn't you console him with her words, although it was still better than sleeping in an icy mountain cave. He explained, at least now there are only undead here, which he raised. He himself spoke to Victor and told the guys to please. I cleaned up here and got rid of the cobwebs. While they were walking through the castle, Victor asked Seb if she thought they would find any ghosts in the living room, and kept saying that in the living room she didn't reach her at all. Didn't know what was there. Then Victor said that she will introduce himself. He missed so much someone who would laugh at his jokes. Everyone explained to our game that everything had changed since he left after Laver gained power. The night blades turned the wrong way, she explained to our hero, who was trying to open the door. Victor, hearing that the blades began to turn in the wrong direction, said that it was a common thing in his opinion, and then he said that they had never angered the Gardenmire government. And now there was talk about supplying Ishvani with weapons, and the young men believed that Vainker put an end to this plan. The next moment, Victor reported that the flow of hellfire was at least useful from these new perks, and the North asked if our hero wanted an omelet for dinner, and then said that of course he wanted this. The next moment she told the young man to give her 1 minute, and when he saw that he was sitting in the chair, our hero asked if he was putting him alone, and then he kept saying that everything was fine. She did this everywhere. Then our hero drew attention to the treasures and opened the chest, saying that there were treasures there and that it was a treasure chest. Addressing everyone, Victor says that did she know that now most materials are wary of the mimic's chests, and that he should have tried to become a ball and should not make sounds. Conversations give him away, and in interesting ones they can't resist the sight of a big ball, especially if they stuck it into stone. The chest heard that Victor was talking to him, asking about the shiny sword that the young man was talking about and asking about the treasures. The treasure sword turned into a chest and the young man said that it was too shiny. Then this someone tried again and seeing what he got. The young man said that now it looked great to Igor so that he would not eat anything in the village. The next moment Victor was thinking that everyone now had a pet. He was talking about our hero that he would now be a ball in the treasures and sitting down. Turning to him, she asked what he would call him now and then the young man, looking at the treasures, thought about how it was about the name Junior. Here the menu system appeared and she congratulated our hero that, thanks to his lessons, Vainker Jr. received the level of swordsman. Hearing this, the young man understood whether the system was serious. At that moment she sat up thinking that she needed to go look for a frying pan for the eggs that she carried in her hands. Then a friend knocked on the door with a croissant. Having entered the house, he asked Victor if anyone was home. Then suddenly he saw the ball on the floor and told him to go to daddy, speaking with a croissant. At that moment the sword shook and stole. He felt that it had bitten him. The young man thought that he already liked the new guard, bringing scrambled eggs to everyone. She said that there is nothing better than a warm dinner after training. I ask how many new levels our hero received. Turning to Vic, the next moment she handed him a hot dinner. A menu popped up in front of our hero and it wrote that Victor the servant gave their level 26 bandits 5 squire monsters 14 Hulk 7 type humanoid dragon personal perks chosen by the observer's bone friend of the dead romantic chosen by the moon man black curse stream of open flame. Class perks Master Key Eyes on Treasure Knife Master Minion Instructor Student Monster Vitality Red Dragon Rider Monster Insight Rally Minions and Live Dead Necromancer 1 Divination on the Dead Life spells. Due to the fact that the young man completed the entry requirements and could convert some levels into increased monster classes, the perks would be affected but the characteristics would not change. The young man could either combine a monster and a necromancer into a Death Knight into a weapon or necromancer bandits into a reaper. Victor reported that at 6 everyone in the necromancer has a total level of 26. Now even the systems call him a minion. Our hero said touchily. Victor, turning to ask, heard Lena when he was told by the Death Knight and the sacristy Sev said that she heard about this and said that the Death Knight was the commanders of the undead and strong warriors, the reapers and stealers of the souls of God. Jesse the actor was one of them and he killed so many people with her scythe that it turned into an artifact. The young man said that since he married monsters too valuable to sacrifice, it was time to reap the benefits of a new class. At that moment the system appeared in front of him again. The menu said that his levels of bandits and necromancers were transformed in the Reaper's urn. The master key is replaced by a master key. The young man could unlock any lock with a successful check, skill, and even magic. They were always considered invited to any place protected by magic. The knife master is replaced by the master of the scythe. He gains perfect mastery of scythes. Damage plus 30. Scythes are now considered staves for witchcraft. Divination on the dead is replaced by another. When killed with a scythe, he takes the soul of the victims inside his weapon. The life spell is replaced by life theft when damage is dealt obliquely. The young man restores Oz as half of the damage dealt. At this moment, Grossman asked if they heard that some kind of mimic bit him and then ran away rubbing his hand, and the young man said that it was sad and asked why there was a croissant here. He said that now that the military had appropriated the city for himself, he asked him how he would like it to be ruled by the military, said that he needed to prepare for war to go to his staff head. Then he ordered his sister to summon a demon and ate it. Victor, sitting in a chair, said that now it means, in fact, he was their mayor, and Croissant reported that it was similar, turning to a friend and then said that a cultured person also wants his divine guidance and also asked not to be offended on this score after all. He brought the quilted jacket here and therefore he deserved it. Victor said that he was not offended by his new friend and tomorrow he would scout out the dungeon for them with his sister. Everything would be fine in the rear since the owner of the rogue class would go scout out the traps, and Croissant said that he was a ranger, not a seeker of his traps. He hunted animals, they neutralized traps. Victor said that he knew that he meant that this would scout traps and activate their ability, and once again he would try to sacrifice his future boss. Leaving Croissant, he said that the young man was a petty wretch, and he said that as a friend once told him, he would wish him to go to hell. Croissant, why should he have you there already? He told the young man, turning to his friend, who was going home to at that moment, Sev, who was sitting next to them, sighed heavily and just looked at the Croissant leaving the house. Victor stayed with Sev and they both sat in a chair, finishing their dinner then turning to Sev. Our hero wanted to ask if Allison knew if there was anyone or not. Then Sev decided to find out if our hero had told the priestess and asked if he wanted to invite her on a date. Our hero reported that he had something with someone else, but she was in another country. He did not think that they would work out in a long-distance relationship. Remembering Charlene, I thought our hero and the Dryad wouldn't work either. Why not invite Chocolatine? Because she's a very nice girl, and Sev said. The young man thought that the girl was a psychopath. She fed some demons to her pigs and she wanted to make pies out of the rest, which confirms his words about a gentle, caring girl with a kind heart, Sev said with a grin. At that moment someone rang the doorbell and interrupted their conversation, so our hero thought to himself about that who was ringing the doorbell at such a time. Then the young man asked what Sev had against Allison, and getting up from his chair, Sev said that it was nothing. But how to say, the girl was there, and without finishing, the young man thought that shouldn't the servant below have opened the door. At that moment our door was opened. The hero saw the Lick right in front of him, who stood in all his glory and used ice chains and then an accelerated animation attacking our hero. Victor was chained with his shoulder and could not talk. Then the next moment, taking out the magic pineapple from Victor's bosom, he only said that now he would take this for himself, and he also told our hero that he could just kill him now, but the dragon as he didn't like it. So he grabbed our hero and sat down, trying to arrive in time to save Vika, and watched as the Lick and Vika disappeared. He only said that the dragon's despair was a joy to him. The next moment he used teleportation. He disappeared, and when she sat down and tried to save our hero, she realized that she had failed and did not have time. The dragon was lying peacefully in the cordon of his minions. Then he ran up to him, shouting to his majesty that there would be trouble later. Having heard what happened, Vainker asked, and Sev, running up to the dragon, said that the Lick had kidnapped Victor. The next moment the dragon, blowing himself up, said that they had to gather everyone, and he called for help from everyone who served him. Cobalt, who was not far from his majesty, turning to him, asked whether he wanted to summon everyone, and he said that it was necessary to summon everyone who was there, and the man Victor was the main jewel of his treasury. The next moment, they all moved to the castle, brought Victor back and destroyed part of the kobold forever, and that they needed to save their boss. The servants were promised a general gathering, and that night Rolo would thin out the herd. He also said that he was ready for battle, and Chocolatine alone along with Croissant were also ready. The girl was very active and said that she was hungry. The next moment all the villagers, including the man with the face of an octopus, were also ready to save Victor, saying that they had to save their prophet. Sitting down, also armed with a knife, she was ready to go save Victor, and then everyone gathered in the form of an army, and a dragon went to the mouth of the volcano, in which the Lick's castle was located, to save their comrade, and Vainker chanted that they should move forward to victory.